So there's like supposed to be this sick fade and then it just drops. Um, how relaxing. I only have 60-second videos. I don't have any 30-second videos, I guess. It's nighttime, so I guess it's time to be sleepy. All right. Well, let's just jump right in. Hey, welcome back to another thrilling live stream of the Mike Seibert Radio podcast. I am your host, and it's been entirely too long since we've hung out here on the live stream. We've been too furious with two mics lately, so it's kind of nice to kind of stretch my legs and do some other stuff. Got a fun show for you tonight. We're going to talk about basically. I think the title I chose is we're either going to catch up or we're going to cats up. Either way, we'll be talking about media and stuff that we've been talking about and consuming for the last, I don't know, year or so. But I am not unguided in this journey. I don't walk this path alone. Joining me on the live stream for the first time in a long time, certainly the first time this year, long overdue, way long overdue. Please welcome back to the Mike Seibert Radio podcast live stream, my friend, the owner-operated madman behind TFU.INFO, the podcast, the toy archive, all of the cool stuff. Anthony Bricali, my friend, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me tonight.
Mike, thanks for having me, and congrats on wrapping the third season of Two Mikes Too Furious. That's a big accomplishment. You guys should be proud.
Thank you very. We both me and Michael Andrews, we are very, very happy. We've accomplished something. And I gotta give kudos and shout outs to our mutual buddies, Autopod Decepticast, for they've been doing this for 7 years now. They did all of the 86 movie a minute at a time. They did all of season 1, all of season 2, all of G1, all 98 episodes or whatever. Now they're doing the Beast Wars, and I did 2 years, 47 episodes. And I'm gassed. It's I do not know how they keep that pace. It's
I think staying regular is the hardest thing, especially I know for me, for my podcast, and I've been doing mine for just about as long, 2017. So we're going on 8 years in September. It'll be, and I'm only 155 episodes in. Because it's a lot of work, and for you guys to keep that pace and do the entire run of animated, it's a lot of work. And also good. Thanks for all the shout outs. I think I'm mentioned just about every episode, but never seen. I am like the gooch.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, like I said at the top, we're basically, we're going to talk about Transformers stuff, obviously. It's unavoidable given our mutual interest, but separately and together, in fact, actually, oftentimes in a lot of our social media DMs, we're always talking about TV shows we're watching, movies we're watching, things we're reading, commentary on fandom stuff. And almost none of it ends up being content. So we thought we would take the opportunity and just kind of have a media catch-up show. So, we'll talk about stuff we've been listening to, stuff we've been reading, stuff we've been watching. If you are streaming with us on YouTube or Twitch or Facebook, not on X, because apparently I have to give the Muskrat money to be able to now append my stream to the Twitter. So screw that noise. But anyway, if you're hanging out with us on the stream and you want to throw us comments, questions, feel free and use the chat. Restream will collate the whatever platform you're on, and we should be able to see it on screen, and we'll shout that out and comment on it as we go. But I guess starting from the top before we kind of get into media, because I got like a stack of stuff for show and tell. I've got some visual aids, but I guess to start keeping it more personal, how are you doing? It's been a long time since you and I have actually talked either virtually or certainly in person. It was Orlando 2023.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, 23 actually, now that I think about it, but anyway,
Uh,
you're
over,
looking great.
Thank
You
you, sir.
got that Florida bronze on, I love it.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Everything's going good. Everyone is happy and healthy. The family's doing good. Work is fine. All the basic things are good. So yeah, no, nothing to really complain about here. And as far as everything else, I've been off. I took off work this week, so I'm on vacation,
Oh, hey.
staycation really. But so I've been getting a lot of stuff done. So I feel really good about like my office in this space. Like I did a whole bunch of shelves here of just like movie and Revenge of the Fallen figures and just getting stuff out of storage that I haven't seen in probably about 12 years since yeah, basically since I got married. So like
Hmm.
yeah, it's been really cool kind of like rediscovering old toys and just stuff that I've collected that I've had around and being able to finally put it back on display.
Yeah, and if you wanna follow Ant on, Blue Sky, that's kinda where the majority of the toy hijinks happens, and I love your rubber tub photos because it's almost kinda like a Where's Waldo type of thing because you have a lot of sought after stuff that's just sitting in a tub with a bunch of other stuff as well, it's always kind of rewarding to be like, "Wait a sec, what is that?" Or like, "Is that what I think it is?"
Yeah, and it's weird because that stuff, especially since like, you know, 12, yeah, probably 12, almost 13 years ago, like I put all that stuff in storage because, I got married, my then fiance and then became my wife, and we were moving in together, and it was like, I need to clear out space. And that stuff wasn't sought after then. So like a lot of it ended up in a tub and like, oh, no one will care about this stuff. And I put it in storage. And then, pulling it out now over a decade later, and you find out like, oh, somebody did something with this character in a comic, and like now it's super important, or that became really rare. And I was like, oh, that wasn't terribly rare 12 years ago. It was a shelf warmer. So, you find out about all these things that are meaningful to a new generation. I think that's kind of neat to see as I'm going
Yeah.
through these bins. Unfortunately, this might be the last like really big bin of stuff. I've got two bins from when we moved here to Florida that is more recent stuff from like Siege and Titan's Return, but I don't think I have that many vintage bins left.
Oh, interesting. Huh. Well, and as, we take a look at your shelves behind you, here on the video, that is, that is quite the not just the elaborate collection, but also how well, like, curated and it looks aesthetically pleasing. I'm very jealous. Freaking
Thank you.
hashtag
Some people
black
always like it. There's too much on shelves, and like, well, there's a method to my madness in some
mhm.
ways. Just try to look over my shoulder. Like if I point there, that's my Wheeljack shrine, and then
Ah,
like here, this whole row here is like Beast Wars, Beast era Maximals, and it wraps around to this other side where it's Predacons, Viacons, and then like uh, down here is universe chug era Decepticons in this kind of section here, and it overflows to Autobots there. So I had the shelves wrap around almost the whole room with the exception of where the window is. And yeah, there's a theme to it. There's a thematics to every kind of area here. I don't just throw stuff on a shelf, or at least I try not to.
right, right. Well, one of the things that has always impressed me about your, uh, display ethos, I guess, for lack of a better term, is like you've always been an advocate for depth. Like, you've talked about like your IKEA shelves, and I'm always coming to you fretting about like, oh man, I don't have room and stuff. It's like, but depth though. So it's like, so it looks like I didn't realize this was going to be collector corner with Ant, but um, like no, just looking at the way your shelves are set up, there's like a tiering system to it. It's like, so are you using like risers or using spice racks? Like how do you take advantage of that depth there? Because that's
uh,
that's something that's very elusive to me.
So, generally, I would love to use acrylic risers. I do in some places. The ones that I've already had, and I did an all clear shelf just over here, and
Hmm,
I set that up with lighting and clear risers to kind of help the light, penetrate through to the bottom. Um, Generally, though, because the shelves are so packed, I just use old boxes, old cardboard boxes. I seal them up, I flip them over, and I put them there. The IKEA shelves that you mentioned, if anyone's interested in them, they're Ivar, which
okay.
is they're just wood. They are like probably one of the cheapest things you can get at IKEA, but they go up really high. They make them so they go up 96 inches. So these shelves go. I have 6 levels on the shelving unit that goes up, and so we can do that here. But they make a narrower one and then a deep shelf, and the deep shelf is 23 inches. So you get a lot for your money in terms of just creating a shelving unit. Where you're not going to spend a lot of money. It's probably comparable, might even be less than doing a detolf or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Um,
And detolfs don't really hold a lot,
no,
and really, you run the risk of, like, weight tolerance and stuff. It's like there's a lot of waste like, I've got a handful of detolfs, but, like, I've offset it by some either acrylic risers or, boxes, things like that, but, like or usually what I do is I have, like, taller figures in there. So it's like that's where my MP10 lives.
right.
That kind of thing, figures with height to them. Um, but even so, you're still running like a lot of wasted space. So I again, I'm constantly impressed by the way that you've managed to consolidate and efficiently use the space with like depth and height, and it's very, very cool.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, the boxes come in handy, and one day I think right now I want to get everything on the shelves, but the idea is like this is just plain wood. Like I can totally stain this a color,
Mm.
kind of make it look fancy, and then the boxes they get hidden by all the figures, but you can get something like Duvetine, which is pretty cheap, and you get it in a roll and cut it to the size of the shelf, and then
Oh
that's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the velvet you see in like jewelry cases, like
Mhm.
and you can probably just lay it over the boxes, and then no one will know the boxes are there, and you can just match it to whatever color you make your shelving unit. So that's something that might be down the line at some point for these.
That's really neat. I it's like, I was almost gonna say you could almost do like backgrounds or something like that also, but with the way you have, like, the depth, you or depth and height, you
Mhm.
don't necessarily need it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. The backgrounds get lost. I've tried it. This is too much on them for you to see anything.
gotcha, gotcha. Well, I'm sure that won't be the last toy-related topic that we get into because, like, being in this collector space at like the age and time that we're in, both figuratively and literally. No, there's it's a good time to be a Transformers fan, but it's also a weird time to be a Transformers fan, like in terms of like intersections of fandom and shifting tastes and changing interests and you being pulled in different directions, internal competition, that kind of thing. So we'll discuss some of that a little bit later as the show rolls along. But I think I would like to start getting into our media discussion, and I want to start with something we've been listening to, and I have a little bit of a visual daily double here. I got this little guy in the mail the other day, and
Nice.
so this is on a compact disc. A 3 disc set. This is the remastered version of Metallica's Load album, and you want to take a trip back to 1996. You want to know what 1996 looked like? We're just gonna open this guy up here, and you got Lars with the eyeliner, and I was just opening this package up. Hit me with like a wave of nostalgia. I was like, oh, I'm a sophomore in high school all over again. Because like I was super into this record when it first came out, and So there's this remastered edition, and in fact, this is one of like several different packages. There's like a variety of LPs. There's like a giant binge and purge style massive box with like, several discs and several LPs and all that. And I like this album well enough, but I don't like it that well enough. The 3 disc collector set on compact disc that I can listen to in my car stereo is good enough for me. But I thought we would spend a couple minutes talking about this because like it's I revisiting this, listening to this on my commute the last couple days. I have very different feelings about this album now than I did first when I first encountered it in 1996, and then also in the interceding years. It'd been years since I listened to this end to end. And yeah, I have different thoughts and feelings on that. But like I guess to keep the conversation going, um, why did you want to talk about this? Because I know why I wanted to talk about it, but I've because you and I have had a lot of like offline conversations about not just Metallica, but also this era of Metallica, and I'm predicting there's going to be a couple places where we kind of part ways a little bit in a good way for fun discussion.
Yeah, probably. Taking it back to 1996, like I just thinking about when that record came out. Where I was a senior in high school, and it was the end of my senior year. Because so that album came out. I was just googling it while you're talking. It came out June 4th, 96.
Yeah.
Um, and there's going back to that time, like I don't remember hating the record, and I don't remember particularly liking the record either. And
Mm.
I think a couple things. One, it's funny we talk about how media is released now. Like music comes out on a Friday now. Like back then it used to come out on Tuesdays. And it came out about a month behind Pantera's Great Southern Trendkill record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I remember like the thing about the Pantera record was it was good, but everything about the artwork looked rushed, like they were trying to get it out before the Metallica record dropped. And then the thing with listening to it now, 30 years after the fact, yeah, I think a couple things were just confirmed that I feel because I revisit this record probably every 5 or 6 years and go, okay, did I miss something? Was there something there? And because it never clicked with me. And I think
Sure.
oddly enough, this time around, the opening track clicks with me more than it ever has. Ain't My Bitch.
Ain't my bitch. Yeah.
Yeah, which I thought was silly the first time I heard it. And
Okay.
just because the lyrics felt clunky. Now they don't feel clunky, but what I've realized about this record and also Reload, which is well, the one thing that kind of the theme for me that flows throughout those two records that is why I usually have a trouble having those records resonate with me is that it feels like coming off the Black Album and the massive success, and still what a success that record is. I
Yeah.
just certified last week Double Diamond, um, which is uh, which is 20 times platinum. Uh, so 20 million copies of that record has been sold. It's still one of the top selling records every year. When you come off the Black Album, and I was one of those folks that hopped on with the Black Album and then worked my way backwards. Um, there's for when they get to Load, I think here's the one thing I think happened, and this is pure speculation on my part.
Yeah. Yeah.
But James Hetfield realized he can sing, and so and you probably put some of this on Bob Rock too, the producer, that Hetfield realizes he can sing, and so now what happens is the vocals become layered in a lot of ways to the point where they become frustrating. Like there's too much of them. And Ain't My Bitch is a great example. That song should end 2 or 3 times beforehand where it ends, and it doesn't. And Metallica's done that before. They've done it on their old records. Disposable Heroes is a great track that I'm like, that's an 8-minute song. I'm like, you think that song's going to end 3 times before it actually ends? but it's all the music carrying it. There's no vocal carrying it when it doesn't end. Um, Same thing with one. Like one, the way one ends, like you think it's not vocal, it's solos and music carrying that out to the end. With this record, there's that. Like it's I kind of equate it to like as you probably done this editing audio. I've certainly seen this happen when people edit video. They discover the software, and so they try to use every effect on the in
Yes, yes.
software in one piece of one project, and it's just disastrous. So I feel like that's what happened. Is like Hetfield realized he could sing, so now he's going to sing everywhere. And so you get that through those two load or reload records. And I think the other thing with load that I've noticed in this listen through, and I haven't made it through the record all the way. I've made it
Okay.
mostly through the record, and then I go back because there's some good tracks. Like King Nothing is one of their best songs. I mean, probably it's probably the best song on the record. And it's very just hooky and catchy. Um, what another thing I realized is there's no fast song. There's no thrashing song at all. Through the first, and I just gave us a re-listen, so I'm not terribly familiar with the back end of the record. But I think Hero of the Day kind of gets into that a little bit, but like it
Mhm.
has such a slow start. There's no song, there's no like even on the Black album, you have Holier Than Thou and you have The Struggle Within. You have songs that just they're fast. They're 3.5 minute burners. They burn through the song and it's fast and it's kind of got a punk rock feel to it, like in terms of like pacing and timing. And you don't have that on this record. And I think that's what pulls me out of it. There's no ebb and flow. Everything is very samey throughout the record. I think that's where it loses me.
Yeah, and I think all that is certainly fair and very insightful. I always appreciate your depth of musical understanding, a fluency that I do not share because I'm like, oh, that sounds good, But like it's and where I think we kind of part ways a little bit is kind of in um not necessarily upbringing, but maybe like in terms of like musical exposure. Like I think of the two of us, you enjoy heavier music more so than I do. Like I try the liquid metal and it's a little too heavy for me sometimes. So I go back to my turbo and or maybe my octane when I'm feeling frisky.
No
Um
Boneyard?
you know what? Boneyard is like the one that I pass. It's like so I think like my presets are like Octane, Boneyard, there's a Hair Nation, Turbo, and then Liquid Metal, and then all the alternative stuff. That then I got freaking Lithium and I even do SMXU from time to time. Feel like I'm getting back to my college radio roots, and then I'm like, oh, this is way too indie for my taste. I've outgrown indie music at a time where I had already outgrown indie music back when I was playing it on an actual college radio station. But like, so for me, I've I'm a suburban Seattle kid. So I was a teenager, late tween, early teen when like grunge and alternative is really kind of rising to the forefront. So around the time that Load comes around, I'm into more alternative slash punk type of stuff. Like I've already discovered Bad Religion at this point. I've already been into The Offspring at this point for a couple years, that kind of thing. So this, in a weird way, kind of matches my sensibilities of the time because like I'm not saying that this is a punk record and it is in no way, but it does have a post grunge feel to it that appealed to me then. Like listening to it again, it was a bomb of nostalgia. Made me feel like I was 16 years old again. It's amazing how media and especially music, I think more than other media, has that transportative texture that it can just it's I mean even like as I was going through like the book that comes with it, and looking at like the Weezer picture of the era. In fact, I think this is actually the same book as the original release. I mean, aside from like the last two pages where it talks about the expanded edition or whatever, I think it's pretty much the same book. But like revisiting this, I've had a misconception for I think the last couple years of our discussion, and I know Paul's in the chat here as well, and I'll put some of these chats up in a few. But like, I've had this weird hot take that Load starts off pretty strong and then tapers off. It's got like a saggy middle, and I feel the same way of Reload. And I feel like those are kind of like two records of two of a kind. So my take for a while now is like you chop off the bottom of both records, put them together, you have one great album. I don't think that anymore. After this revisit, stuff like Fuel and The Memory Remains and whatever the hell else is on Reload doesn't belong here. I think if I did do that dream playlist, I think I would run into some tonal clashes that I wouldn't necessarily like. Like I used to think that like Fuel and Ain't My Bitch are kind of a kind. And they kind of are, but they're also kind of not. So I still think that the first half to 2/3 of the album is solid. Like I listened all the way through to through Bleeding Me with no skips. And I remember when I was a moody 16-year-old suburban Seattle kid, um, Hero of the Day was my shit. Like for some reason, I don't know if it's because of the slow buildup or just kind of like the pseudo triumphant march of it. Whatever it was, really stuck with me at that time. And listening to it now, because again, I haven't listened to this in years, but probably the last time I listened to this was when I did that podcast with Greg for Unfunny Nerd Tangent, what, 6, 7 years ago? And I can't even listen to that now because I had some really weird takes. My relationship with Metallica is complicated. It's not without nuance. Because like it's a band that's always been with me, but like, and I would consider them to be amongst my favorites and probably on my Mount Rushmore, but like there's whole swaths of stuff that I just skip over. And a lot of it is like the back half of this record. Like once you go from Bleeding Me to Cure, I really start losing interest. The more blues infused bluegrass type of stuff isn't really my cup of tea. And I think that's where our interests start to realign a little bit because um I I guess for my flavor of music, I need something that's melodic. Whether it's fast, whether it's slow, it needs to have kind of like, take me on a ride a little bit. And more than anything, and this is kind of why I gravitated to Metallica's music when I was younger. Like I talked about on that show a million years ago, I had an older cousin who put the Black Album in my hand. And there was no going back. I started, it took me a while to get there. Like I famously, I mean, again, this is like one of the hottest takes that I think people will chisel on my tombstone. I bought Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets on the same day. So I experienced those in the same time. Not the way you should experience those records at all. And because of that, I've always had a favoring towards Ride the Lightning. In fact, actually, gun to my head, that's probably still my favorite album. Like it just, even with it's more polished than Kill 'Em All, but it's not as overproduced as the later stuff. It's like right in that sweet spot for my ear. Now, when I say that, true fans would be like, "No, friend, you're thinking of Master of Puppets." And I'm like, "Yes, but I experienced Ride the Lightning first." So it's like I mean, and I like Master of Puppets. I mean, obviously it's a masterpiece, but like there is something about my uniquely singular experience of experiencing those two albums in tandem that like inevitably I'm going to choose. It's like, do I listen to this or do I listen to that? Anyway, I choose Ride the Lightning. But anyway, even in their more raw stuff, there's always an inherent melody to it. And because of James Hetfield's vocals, where I gravitate to it is that I can understand what he's saying, I could follow along, and most importantly, I can sing along. And that's what Metallica has been to me. Like, I think I've talked at like Baby's First Metal or something like that. Like, Slayer's a little too heavy for me. Metallica's just right. That kind of thing. I'm very much a mainstream suburban Seattle kid with those kinds of sensibilities. Like I remember when Evil Empire from Rage Against the Machine dropped, we all went on lunch across the street to the mall. Half of us went to Music Land, the other half of us went to Camelot to pick up the CD. Like it was just a very Pacific Northwest Seattle area suburban kid experience at that time. Um, but what I found revisiting Load is that there is a level of angst that I enjoy and that kind of resonated with me a little harder this time now that I'm in my mid to late 40s than I did when I was in my mid teens. Stuff like Bleeding Me, that kind of hit a little harder. But then like some of the other stuff, it's like I'm gonna need my reading glasses to read this teeny tiny type. I have the track listing up on my screen and I don't. But like Poor Twisted Me, I don't like that song. Cure, I don't like that song. Um Mama Said, I don't like that song. Um uh Thorn Within, I especially don't like. Ronnie was shockingly fun. Like, I'm just like, yeah, I'm like, okay, well, this is just sludgy. It's kind of a slog. But I was surprised, like when it gets to the chorus with Ronnie, shockingly fun. And the last track, and this is kind of like the thing with this release, is it has the expanded version of the Outlaw Torn and storage issues of the day. I guess they found some new type of compression technology or something like that. But they cut a minute out of it. And from what I understand, and as of this stream, I have not done the comparison to see like the before and after, but from what I understand is James has a solo at the end of the song. And basically they just kind of cut it where because I think if I remember correctly, it just kind of like fades. It's not exactly abrupt, but it just kind of ends. And whereas this version, it's about a minute longer, and I kind of fell into the hype a little bit. And I think I had too lopsided expectations going into it that like, oh man, this is, because of like where James was at his time, because he was, struggling with sobriety, and some of that makes that shit. James is always struggling with sobriety. Let's make a whiskey company. Great idea. Recovering alcoholic. Okay. Anyway, but no, so I was expecting something that was more of like an outpouring from him where it's like, because I read somewhere in some of these write-ups that it's like, oh man, he was really putting himself into it, and it's just kind of more of the same. It's like, so the end of the song that you hear like on the original version, it's the same thing, just another minute of it. And it's fine. But it didn't really blow my hair back in the way that I was anticipating. I was expecting, I guess, to go on some kind of journey to be like, oh man, this adds so much texture to it. Instead, it's just kind of like the director's cut of Batman v Superman or something like that, where it's like, well, it's not better, it's just longer. It's like that doesn't help. But but no, like I had a really good time going through this. Um Going into this deluxe set, so like I said, this is the 3 CD expanded edition. It's so disc 1 is load remastered. Disc 2 is demos, rough mixes, riffs, and basically it has one alternate version for every song. So some of them are or alternate versions that we know. Like for example, I mentioned I was a hero of the day guy. I had two different CD singles. One was like an import from Japan or whatever, and I had a 5 disc carousel changer, and for whatever, somehow the disc slipped, got caught in the changer, and cracked in half.
Mm.
And so from the point I was 17 onward, I was like, oh man, I can't listen to Moldy anymore. I obviously found it later on, YouTube and streaming and stuff. So, but what I thought was interesting is that the version that's on here on this release isn't the one that's on the CD single I had. It's a different take. And for all these rough mixes and demos and stuff, there's like a little bit of audio commentary on there. It'd be like, oh, bitch, take 14 or something like that. And so like in there, I don't know if it's Bob Rock. I'm presuming it is, but there's some kind of like vocal artifact texture to it. Makes it kind of cool. It's kind of fun, but none of them are what I would there isn't anything revolutionary. There isn't anything that it's a disc of filler, unfortunately. And disc 3 is live tracks taken from 1995 to 1997, and it's fine. you know, I've gotten my money's worth out of it, just for the nostalgia trip. But yeah, it's shrug. It's fine.
Yep.
I
And if you want the streaming version, by the way, I was just looking because I thought my playlist looked long when I was playing it. At least on Apple Music, and it's probably on the other streaming service. The deluxe box set is there, so that is all 200 plus songs, all 15 discs of the deluxe
Holy
version.
mackerel! I mean, how many alternate versions of these 14 songs can you tolerate?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and well, most a lot of this is one, two, three. I mean, the last four, five. I mean, there's live performances. There were TV performances. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Um, Metallica does a great weekly podcast that's called the Metallica Report, and the folks that work for them and that are on their team really dug deep into like what this is, and it's all part of the marketing for the reasons.
sure.
But it's really neat to hear like how far they went into this. So you got to remember also this is recorded at a time, so you go from the Black Album that is recorded mostly analog
Mhm.
to a world where you have Pro Tools and digital recording in a much more available way. So, and the band has a lot more money because they were doing really well off the Black Album. That they have this opportunity to go and really go in and noodle with every last detail of that record. And so not only is that, but now they're saved because digital tapes aren't that big. And so
Yeah.
like physically that big, so they're easy to store.
Mhm.
So you think about that. So like they had a chance to go through, and then someone's job was to go through all of that. So it is kind of neat that they're doing this massive box set. I'm just glad it's streaming, so that if you want to be able to experience it without having to purchase a ton of vinyl or something along those lines, you can.
Yeah. Like I have no interest in owning this on vinyl. Like, I mean, I have I've got a halfway decent vinyl collection, but like I like this album, but I don't like it that much. But I did discover in this reappraisal, this revisiting, that I do like it more than I thought I did. Because like, I was super into it when it came out. And I wonder if I was into it because so many people were not. Because like I had a lot of friends at that time who were actual metalheads. And it's like, this is, this is trash. This is garbage. They sold out. They cut their hair, wear an eyeliner and all that stuff. And for some reason, because of like the other stuff that I was into, um, I mean, shit, I'm seeing like Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots wearing guy liner also. So it's like that wasn't necessarily a deal breaker for me. And I don't know. I thought that there was, for my 16-year-old sensibilities, I was surprised by what I perceived to be the depth. The uh post mainstream success maturity. Now, I was 16 years old, so I wasn't that bright, but yeah, so it didn't, it felt like an answer to the Black Album. Like, this is what we do next. And it's interesting to see how Metallica's career would go from there. Um, because like, you and I have had conversations about Hardwired, and that's for some a return to form. For me, it's too heavy. It's too thrashy, it's too hard, for lack of a better term, and it because it lacks some of that melodic texture that I need. And you've constantly advocated for Spit Out the Bone. And God, I wish I liked that song as much as you do. Because like I keep going back to I'm like, I'm gonna like it this time. And I'm always just kind of like, it's fine, but I can't like sing along to it. It's not, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. But like conversely though, I love 72 Seasons. Like I like the faster, shorter songs, the more uh punk influence, a more punk attitude that I kind of like. I mean, like I've talked with our mutual friend Optimal Optimal Alex, and said like, I think Lux Eterna is basically a Bad Religion song sung by Metallica, because it's got like that same cadence and same cadence and word choice, more than anything. But like, no, I dig it. Like when I went to go see them last year, um, I I liked it when they played the new stuff. It's like, um, I kind of celebrate the catalog. But I think though, um, for me, I still think the best return to form for them was Death Magnetic. Because like I think it's one of the common things that we see with like um through this era, from like Load forward. Every album I would say has 4 songs too many on it. And that's like a weird common thing until you get to Death Magnetic. And it's the, I don't know, I just I liked that it was shorter, more concise. Um and with that same mainstream appeal that I like. Like I'm a mainstream guy. So anyway, those are some of my weird random thoughts about the oeuvre of of Metallica. It's like I could be a Metallica fan and not be a true metalhead, I guess. Is as I guess where I'm trying to go with that.
That's when you start getting into the notion of like true fan, which I always think is a lot of BS. Like, and I think some of that, you go back, and I think that's a maturity thing too. So like you go back to '96, and as someone who's a metalhead, as someone who was, so as you say, you were a suburban kid in Seattle, which is like the epicenter of the grunge scene, right?
Mhm.
On the East Coast in New York, being a city kid, going to hardcore punk and metal shows around New York at like places like the Wetlands and CBGB's and Irving Plaza and Roseland, and like these famous clubs, and seeing all these underground bands and metal bands and punk bands and hardcore punk bands, and like Metallica was kind of like you said, it's kind of it's the gateway drug for metalheads in a lot of ways. And so for those folks who felt like, there were folks, I guess, older than me, who felt the Black Album was a betrayal. Um, and then there are folks who started the Black Album like myself, who worked their way backwards to the heavier stuff, and then kind of felt that Load was a betrayal, in a
Yeah,
way,
yeah,
and not so much the visual look. I mean, but like that's where you get to the sellout. Like you're like, oh, you did a grunge record, and you stopped referring to yourself as metal, and you referred to yourself as a rock and roll band, and then like the bands you took out on tour with you were bands that were kind of in that MTV grunge alternative vein. um, so what happens is, like especially at least, there's a divide at that time between like the alternative kids and the metal kids, and like you may hang out, but you don't listen to the same music kind of thing. I don't think it's
yeah,
as
yeah.
bad as say like the '80s where like punk kids, and metal kids like didn't get along in the way like they would physically like fight each other at shows just because someone had long hair or
Right,
someone had,
right.
yeah, a mohawk. Like so I think there's that kind of, I don't know, stain on this record, oddly enough, with the name and the cover. Um, and I think you're right. I think, for what it's worth, the band takes this journey from here that is for a lot of fans a progression downward, until they get to Death Magnetic.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm with you. I like Death Magnetic. I really like Hardwired. 72 Seasons hasn't clicked with me, and I feel like that's more me than the record.
Mm,
Like I've listened to it twice. I'm like, yeah, I probably need to give it another chance. But like it just nothing kind of got in my head the way the previous two records did.
sure.
Um, and yeah, I think, this is all part of their journey. It's gonna be neat to see also because Metallica has been doing these reissues all along the way. And I think, the next one you're going to get to isn't going to be Reload. It's going to be Garage Inc.
Yeah,
Um, which I think came out between Load and Reload, if I remember right.
I
I
think
could
you're
be
right.
I could be wrong about that though. But even if they go Load and then Reload and then Garage Inc. Um, it'll be interesting to see what else they did, what they can unearth. I think you're getting to Metallica's done just as a business, they've done a really good job in terms of servicing their fans with these reissues, and yeah, it's something to be said for that as well.
Absolutely. So let me see. I got the discography here. You got to Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning, Master of Puppets, and Justice for All, Metallica, Load, Reload, Saint Anger. Come on. Well, where's my Garage Days? Come on, man. Oh, cover albums. Garage Inc., November 24th, 1998. When does Reload come out? November 18th, 1997. That's a
Yeah,
year later.
yeah,
Wow.
okay.
So it is Load and Reload and then Garage Days. Interesting. Huh. Oh yeah. Paul in the chat. Also, you got came out in 1998. S&M in 1999. I got carded to buy that album. I'm like, are you serious? Crazy. But yeah. Let's see what else did. Oh man, Paul has been lighting up the chat here. Let's see. Well, let's go to the chat here. Transformers Dad. I love that album. Me too. Paul, Ain't My Bitch is such an almost winner, but it's the title line that sucks. Soft disagree, but I think Ant agrees.
I agree. Well, and that's grown on me. The really, but it's the end of the song. Like
Yeah.
just end the damn song. Like there's a
Mhm.
couple of times. All you have to do is they change one lyric and they say it ain't my smile, it ain't my style, it ain't my bitch. Boom, song ends. But no, it doesn't.
Oh, yeah.
And then they go through the riff again, and then they do another, and then like they just kind of he vamps it out vocally, and then they get to another riff that just is there for a second, and then they end the song.
Right.
It's too like, and Metallica's known for long songs, but like yeah,
Sure.
that whole song, like you chop the last minute and a half off of it, and it is so much tighter and so much better.
Yeah, and I think to your point a while ago when you observe that this is where James Hetfield realized he can sing, he also realized he can oversing. I think Ain't My Bitch is ground zero for
Yeah.
Hetfield isms. I mean the title of the song shouldn't be Ain't My Bitch, it should be Ain't My Bitch Cha.
Yeah, and kind of to put that in maybe a way everyone can understand. It's like when you discover the fonts in Word or in
Yes.
whatever, and it's
Yeah.
like like just stop playing with wingdings, James. Just stop.
Yes. Oh my gosh, more from Paul here. 2x4 is the best. I kind of agree. That's fun. It's funner than I remember.
It's a swinging track. Yeah, same thing going through it this time around. And I'm not the big. I wasn't the biggest fan of Lars's drumming overall, but he actually plays the hell out of that song.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
neat.
Ronnie is also an underrated gem. I kind of agree. It was funner than I remember. Wasting my hate, 3 exclamation points. That was a fun one. Let's see. Paul again. Why am I not on this call with my important opinions on load? Transformer Dad. Ronnie is my go-to when I just want to reset. Paul. Unpopular opinion, Ride the Lightning sounds like it's recorded in an airport hangar with the band one side and tin can on a string as its microphone on the other end. I can't disagree, but like I kind of like that texture to it because it's um again not as raw and unpolished as Kill 'Em All, but yeah, there is a youthful intensity to it. Oh, that reminds me. That was the thing I was going to bring up also with like the uh sensibilities of load. It's like what does a band of angry young men have any hope of singing about when they're no longer angry young men? It's like, and I feel like this represents that transition even more so than Black Album did. Black Album feels like, I mean, again, it's a mainstream album. It's like we're going to figure out how to like it's it feels like a crossover record for me. You give me the scrunchy eyebrows. Sounds like you don't agree.
Oh no, I agree. I think I'm thinking about the timing. It's just
Mm,
something you said. It's when the Black Album's recorded and released, those guys are roughly 29 years old. Right before turning 30 ish.
yeah.
Or maybe in 30, 31. So you tack 5 years onto that, and you're a very different person, I think, in your mid to late 30s than you are in your late 20s, early 30s.
Can
So yeah,
confirm.
yeah,
And then
and
it takes another turn when you hit your mid 40s.
yeah, and then you tack on that they're also, they have skyrocketed to stardom in that time. There's that as well.
Yeah.
So I think those sorts of things really do change how that record, they really influence how Load is written, what they're going for. I remember, I think it was Paul who said something along the lines of like, it was James Hetfield trying to be Corrosion of Conformity, which
Oh.
uh, or something like that, which
Yeah.
we know is one of Paul's favorite bands. And I was just looking like, well, the COC record that from that year, Wise Blood, comes out about 6 months. It comes out about 4 months later, so there might be some there might be some truth to that.
One of the other things that was nice going through this particular packaging, especially with like, again, like I said, like all the pictures and the book and all that, is to see Jason again. That was kind of nice. It's like and I like that they aren't like shying away from it. You know what I mean? Like there's a version of it where they don't use the pictures, or like it's more neutral packaging or whatever. Could be a
Yeah,
number of things.
yeah,
But
I think Newstead's on the payroll to some extent. So like he's doing press for this to some. I've seen his name pop up in my feed for various
mhm.
podcasts, and he's appeared on the Metallica podcast. So like because it only benefits him. He's not doing anything else, and like the more they sell of this, he gets a cut of that, right? So like
That's true.
it's interesting. It's nice seeing Jason, in the metal scene too. He had a couple of solo bands he was touring around with, doing stuff, and it was always neat seeing him show up to things like, because he was now on his own away from Metallica and not part of that band. Like he got, I think there was a couple of years ago, and this might be more than a couple of years ago, like he got on stage and performed with Megadeth, like, which
Mm.
you know
Oh,
you're not
yeah.
going to see in, if he was still in Metallica. So
Right,
all
right.
kind of neat stuff there. So yeah, it's always nice to see Jason. The band's going to be coming up on 50. Let's see, 81. So they'll be coming up on 50 years in the next 5 years or so. Like they're going to have to do something.
Wow.
Yeah, they'll also all be in their 70s at that point. So
Yeah, I was
except for
gonna say,
Rob, but
well, it was interesting when I, yeah, and especially through the lens of, looking at these guys versus the guys I saw on stage last year, last August, or actually even going through the booklet for 72 seasons. Like those photos are intentionally, specifically unflattering. Like, it's just interesting. I mean, especially with James to see like his like jet black chops, and now it's yeah, now it's just all silver gray as it comes for us all. In the chat, Transformers dad, my friends gave me a hard time over load, but almost gave a pass for reload, which is weird. That is weird. Helios56 in the chat. I'll watch it on YouTube. Is Death Magnetic the only album that is heavier than the previous?
oh, good question. I mean, well,
Well, I mean, Saint Anger is is the previous. So
I think up and through Justice. I mean, Ride of the Lightning's heavier than Kill 'Em All. Master of Puppets heavier than Lightning, and then
yeah, yeah,
Justice for All is probably the heaviest one they've ever done. So,
right.
but since that, yeah, I can see that. Um, it's also not as bloated as even the later records. So, Hardwired is a double album. 72 Seasons is still pretty deep in terms of number of songs, whereas
Yes.
Death Magnetic is what, maybe 8 or 12 songs. It's not terribly long.
Correct. Finding that now. 10.
10.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
74
is smart.
seconds in the total runtime, which is
Yeah,
brilliant. Just right.
yeah, yeah, and it's smart. It's smart on their part, especially coming off of the disaster that's Saint Anger.
Yeah. Speaking of revisits, I try. Like there are times that I trick myself into thinking that Frantic is a good song. It's not. And I went through another period where I don't know if you have this on if you bought it on CD at the time. I bought like it may have been a Best Buy exclusive or something, but the one I bought comes with the DVD. And I remember the thing with the DVD is better because Robert's playing bass instead of Bob Rock. And I'm like, okay, but you still got a fair amount of snare in there. So no points gained there, unfortunately.
I'm with you on the. It's funny. I have the Best Buy version. I remember going to buy it. This is how specifically I remember. I was teaching at a broadcasting school on Long Island. I took one on my lunch break, drove to Best Buy. They had it on sale, like at a ridiculous price, like I don't know, it's like $8 or something, like whatever it was. It was like clearance level prices,
Sure.
and I bought. Here's my thoughts on Saint Anger. I bought that, and I bought Jules 0304 record because I'm a big Jewel fan, and I love the crap out of that Jewel record, and I've never really listened to much. And that's the one that's like her Saint Anger. Like people don't like that record
Yeah,
because it's a
yeah.
pop record.
That's funny. Um, so yeah, I think I don't know. Any other I think after talking about it for about an hour, I think we're almost at the 7859 original storage for the original release of Load. I think
Yeah, we have done a lot of Metallica legislation in this first
yes.
hour.
I think more so than I was anticipating. But so let's move on then. We talked about what we've been listening to. Let's talk about some of the stuff that we've been reading, and this will kind of like curve back into stuff for our Transformers friends. It's like, wait, I've got two Transformers podcasters, and they're spending an hour talking about Metallica. I'm like, hey man, I thought we were going to catch up on media. Stop it. It's fine. It's fun. But so I have a visual daily double that I would like to share with the class. I talked about this a couple episodes ago on Two Mics Too Furious, but I did some scouring on my used bookstore websites, and I have now acquired a copy of the Allspark Almanac for myself. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is not the complete Allspark Almanac. This is volume 1. And while the complete Allspark Almanac and the Allspark Almanac volume 2 are long out of print and impossible to find. Hundreds of dollars that will set you back. This guy here, I got it shipped for $10. So and I kind of learned why. So this must have been in much more printed supply. There's just got to be more of these out in the wild, and I'm sure folks that have the complete Allspark Almanac have since jettisoned their copies. So that's how these end up in the wild. But this I've learned through my journey. This is written by previous guest of the show, Jim Sorensen and Bill Forster. And basically it's a guide to Transformers Animated. And this particular volume, volume 1, is through season 1 and season 2. So it has no season 3 content, despite, I checked the publishing date, was published in June of 2009 after Endgame Part 2 had already aired. So, because that was like in mid-May, I believe, mid to late May. But anyway, so this comes out around the same time as season 3, and then like a year later, they put out volume 2 of Allspark Almanac, and then years later, in 2015, they put out the complete Allspark Almanac. Before I start talking about this a little bit, Ant, do you have this? Do you have any Allspark Almanacs?
No, those came at a time where I was working a lot,
Yeah.
and so yeah, that was all stuff I ended up having to play catch up on, or at least in terms of like reading or finding out about. Yeah, I've never even read those. I've had people kind enough to send me PDF versions of them to peruse, but yeah, no, those are ones I've never touched.
It's pretty cool in that basically, so it has like, behind the scenes kind of early sketches, uh commentary, more information about the characters, concept drawings, things like that. So it tries to do a couple different things because for the characters, it's the blurbs are written in universe. So early on, and we talked about this in our last episode, but Michael Andrews has the complete Allspark Almanac, and early on in our show, what we were going to do is we were going to consult the almanac after every episode to see how it relates to the discussion we're talking about. We found out very quickly that wasn't worth our while, because not only is it written in universe in character, but it's also written retrospectively from the perspective of the show has already happened. So for my purposes as a first time watcher, that is especially not helpful. Like I think he got to the entry about sorry Sumdac and stopped reading immediately. And it's like, oh, because yeah, there's just tons of forbidden information in there. But this book is pretty cool. Like it's it's got some neat artwork in there. I have not read this cover to cover. This runs about 118 pages, I believe. And what's funny though is, as I said, I picked this up from a used bookstore website for $10. It You might not be able to see it on here in the corner, but it has a sticker on it that says Goodwill 99 cents. So somebody must have like I'm doing some casual flipping here. And I like picking up used books because it looks like this used to belong to somebody else. But other than that, there's no markings in it. But it's a yeah, it's a neat little guidebook. What I hope to chat with Jim at some point and say like, hey man, what is the deal with why is it so sought after the complete version? It's like, is the print run like so low? Is demand so high? I mean, obviously now today, IDW doesn't have the license anymore, but still, I don't understand why there's a million of these floating around and not enough of both volume two and the complete floating around out there. Um, but also over on Blue Sky, Andy Anonymous sent me a link to the Internet Archive where there is a pretty clean scan of the Allspark Almanac on there. And I've since reshared it, but I could probably share it again from my channels here. And I didn't realize until I was flipping through it. It's like 222 pages. Well, this one only has 118. It's the complete Allspark Almanac, just right there on the Internet Archive. So folks can check that out as well. But yeah, it's a neat, fun little book that I've been tootling through. I haven't really found anything of significant insight where I'm like, oh God, this blows my mind. Because it's a lot of stuff that I've come to learn about the production that, like, it was going to be Transformers Hero first, and then eventually came to what we know as animated. But yeah, still it's a fun little read. So maybe I'll churn through it over the summer. And yeah, maybe I'll find something in here that's more noteworthy to talk about. Like, I thought I wanted to do like an episode on it, and Michael Andrews was like, there ain't that much there to really get into. So,
I
but
feel
anyway,
like part two is supposed to have more to it in terms of things they had planned to do, characters that you see in the background. I think that's also why part two is more sought after because it has more information that isn't just something you could probably glean from the episode. It's funny you're talking about Jim and Derek and those folks, and every time people talk about the Allspark Almanac, I'm brought back to, and my memory is kind of fuzzy on this, but there was a BotCon I went to one year, and Derek J. Wyatt was there as a guest, and Jim was there. And I remember it was one evening, it might have been Sunday night after the convention ended. We were all hanging out in the lobby, and Derek and Jim and Trent Troop and Greg Sepelak, who did the BotCon text stories that were on the fan
mm,
club website, were basically just like holding court, telling us like all the inside stuff, all the background stuff that probably in the Allspark Almanac, and then stuff for Shattered Glass that they had all planned out. I don't remember a lot of the specifics. I know there was a whole GI Joe portion of Shattered Glass planned out, but that's like the one thing I remember. But like it was like 2 or 3 hours of just sitting around the lobby listening to these four guys talk about like what was going on, like what they had behind the scenes with at that time, I guess, Fun Publications, and then
yeah,
also with going on with animated.
that's that's incredible. Like, I mean, you hear so many convention stories. It's like, oh man, to be a fly on the wall, that kind of thing. And that's why going to conventions is fun. You never know who you're going to run into, and next thing you know, you're splitting a pizza with Jim Sorensen and Aaron Archer in a bar in Chicago, just hanging out, shooting the breeze. It's
Yeah, I remember. It's funny. I met Jim Sorensen at my first BotCon. We hung out in the lobby. I think like the first night I was there because I remember the hat. Like he,
yeah.
he always wears this black hat, and like me, it was 1999, so I'm like 20 years old, hanging out in St. Paul, and we're hanging out in the lobby and just goofing around, like putting Action Masters in dirty poses, and like that's what I remember from my first time hanging out with Jim. So
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. So the other thing that we've been reading, I think you more than me, but we also wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about comics and talking about the Energon universe from Skybound. For me, like it's funny because like I have had what I could only describe as a roller coaster relationship with this continuity. I like I don't want to say resistant, but like I wasn't over the moon the way other folks were. And in fact, I really didn't get like super into it until like TFCon LA, like not this last year, but the year before. And my buddy Ed, like he's like, I've got the issues. Can I sit here and talk to you about why this is important to me? And I'm like, yes, you can. Let me go refresh my drink first. And we sat at like a table in the outside bar at in Burbank, and he like went through every issue of Skybound. I think like issue 6 had just come out. Like it was like the Devastator issue, and it's in the the song and all that other stuff. So it's like so it was cool to experience it through his eyes in a way that I hadn't really paid that much mind to. Like I think Ant, as we had talked about kind of like on offline, I was like, I don't know, man, this is kind of giving me some Dreamwave vibes. It's like, ooh, it's edgy. Yeah, I remember when Transformers were edgy back in 2002. Cool. And so I was really kind of sour on it, but like so I hit kind of a bump coming out of LA, went back and picked up the issues, even like dipped into some of the other stuff. Like I got like Cobra Commander and I think I dipped into Void Rivals for a minute, but like none of it has stuck. Like I even being a GI Joe guy, I'm not like super into the GI Joe arm of it, which puzzles people. Um, but like, so the only thing I'm reading is Transformers. And even then, like I hit like a real spike around like I think it's issue 7. I think that's like when the Soundwave stuff really starts happening. Cause like my inbox is just flooded with like, Mike, are you reading Skybound? Cause it's for you. Trust me, it's for you. And I picked up the issue and I really liked it. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stick with this for a while. But since then, that enthusiasm has since cooled. It's like, and now I'm kind of back to where I was originally, where I'm just like, I'm really kind of tepid on it. It's not specifically because it's bad. I don't, I think another arm of conversation we can have is like crossover appeal and mainstream success, but I don't want to bog us down right now, right away. But like, I like it, but I don't love it. And that's kind of where I'm at with like kind of the whole Energon universe in as a whole, and I suspect that some of it is a me thing. Like maybe it's just not my taste, maybe it's just not my sensibilities. Maybe I've outgrown this cuz like the other thing is I don't read a whole lot of comics. Like because of like my work schedule and other things I've got going on, I don't have that slice of time for reading comics that I used to, um, even like before COVID, like 5, 6 years ago. Um, I just don't have time for it anymore. So I think my enthusiasm for comics as a medium, unfortunately, has kind of cooled a bit also. And I think so maybe that's some of my own personal angst wrapped up in this I don't know, weirdly unremarkable universe at times, but I guess that's kind of my opening salvo on Energon Universe. How about you?
I would say you're not far off from where I am. I think, I think the last time I was on the stream, we discussed maybe first 2 or 3 issues, and I this comic in a lot of ways, yes, like 13-year-old me would have loved this book. Um, I enjoy it. I don't necessarily like. There are people who are very passionate about it, and it's great to see that. But I'm not one of those people.
Right.
it's good. Like there's no denying it's good. I think they're, like like the story is, the art is good, the story is good. Like the story is consistent. Like it's it's not filled with holes or like
Yeah.
weird things that you're going like, why did they do that? Which Dreamwave had in abundance, right? Um, but what I think my issue with Transformers, not necessarily not with the Energon universe, but specifically with the Transformers book, is that it's joyless. It is, it is dark for the sake of dark. It is violent for the sake of violence. And I just don't know if Transformers is the right IP for that sort of story for a prolonged period of time. And I think that that is where I think I draw issue with the series. Like I enjoy it, I read it. Fortunately, I don't have to pay for it. I get it for free. Like so, Skybound sends me a reader copy every week. Like if I had to put out $4 every month for this, yeah, I probably would have bailed a while ago.
Yeah.
I think overall, like this, like I said, the story is good, but there are just times where I'm like, this, like, going right back to the first issue, like you shot Bumblebee in the face, and a friend, and I'm stealing some one of my friend's analysis on this because he makes the point so much better than I can. Um, just to make Cliffjumper the red Bumblebee. Like he is just, there is nothing about Cliffjumper's personality that isn't just Bumblebee's personality in the
Right.
story. Um, and so it just, yeah, like I think that's my hang up on Transformers. Now, I read the GI Joe miniseries. They were varyingly good in depending on which one you read.
Right.
Like talking about violence for the sake of violence, the Cobra Commander one is super violent, but it felt like appropriate for
Mhm.
that character in a lot of ways. Like you have to believe that Cobra Commander is more than what you get in the cartoon in order for him to be the leader of this giant organization.
Sure.
Um, I haven't read the ongoing, oddly enough. Like I've been stockpiling issues on my phone to read, and I will get to them. But the one that's jumped out as a surprise to me is Void Rivals, of how
Mhm.
good that one has become. And Mike, as a fan of Transformers the movie, I think you might want to take another look at that one because it is basically, if Transformers, Skybound Transformers comic is, and one of my complaints and one of a lot of people's complaints is like, this is, 84 to 85 characters and that's it, or maybe some 86. Um, and what you get, I think what you get from Void Rivals is season three of the cartoon.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
because it is a space journey. Like, the first couple issues, like, feeling like the Transformer tie-in was terribly forced, especially with Jetfire just pooching his way in and out of the story. um I feel like, the story has gotten, like, they've gotten this neat lore around this, the black hole around the planet, and then and the two the two uh races basically having this, cold war with one another. And there's now an existential threat, which is pretty neat. And there's some really good, like, um there's really some really good deep cuts. I wouldn't even say deep cuts, but there are cuts into certain episodes of season three and things they've brought in, and that I would say it is probably the most enjoyable of the books. And it
Yeah.
has its moments of humor. It has its moments of, like, there's an emotional tie there. There are issues where you're like, all right, they're writing for the trade, nothing happened, a lot of people talking. But and there's some plot threads. I'm like, there are things that are being going to be revealed. I'm like, they totally telegraphed this, months ago. Can we just reveal that so and so is related to so and so? Like,
Right.
there are things like, you're like, all right, come on, just get on with it. um but it has Springer, it has Hot Rod, and I'm not really spoiling anything. They're on the covers
Yep.
there.
Yep.
Um, it delves into Skuxoid and his origins, and has really made him a really interesting character in a lot of ways, that I want to kind of follow up more on him. So yeah, I would say Void Rivals is the one that stands out. Other thing about Transformers, Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers, that to go with that joylessness, it feels like Transformers as the DC cinematic universe. Like
Yeah.
it's like dark for the sake of dark, and it's more coherent than the DC cinematic universe, but it is still kind of um, just entrenched in this kind of what's the most violent thing we can do, and build a story around. And I think that's where I've disconnected with it. I did want to know what your thoughts as far as like them trashing Seattle. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. R.I.P. Tacoma. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, at least they're like actual places. Because that's, I mean, not necessarily like a deep cut, but still, it's yeah. And ironically enough, nobody sent me that. Everybody was just sending me like Soundwave stuff.
Oh, I mentioned it to you. I was like, it's not out yet, and you haven't read
Oh,
it.
right. Oh, that's funny. That's because like it's because like you'll give me vague teases sometimes, and then like enough time will pass, and I'll just be like, I wonder what he was talking about there. Maybe I should ask. Maybe it'll come up organically, but also maybe not. Like I remember when Shredhead debuted, and I think you were trying to tell me about that without telling me about that, and then it came and went, and I'm like, oh, I think that was the thing he was trying to tell me about.
I
Yeah,
actually like the idea of Shredhead. I think that's one of the, like, there are concepts in the Daniel Warren Johnson book that I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like, we should explore that more. Like,
yeah,
I don't need somebody, like, I don't need Optimus ripping his arm off and beating someone to death with it. Like,
yeah,
that it's neat in concept. It's neat when you're like, hey, like, I feel like there are times where it feels like the writing is like what can we get away with? What ridiculous thing can we do that, and make it believable? Um, and yeah, and that's, again, that's when you're a teenager, when you're in your 20s, like that's the kind of thing you want to do, creatively, I think. And yeah, but yeah, for me at my age, like, that's not something I necessarily want out of this book.
yeah. Well, and I feel sometimes, and maybe this is the social media effect, because I wonder what other iterations of Transformers comics would have been like if we had Twitter in 2002 with Dreamwave,
Yeah,
or
it's a good point. Like, people talk about writing for the trade, but you also want to make sure you're writing for the screen grab, or for the meme.
yes,
So that's a really good point.
yeah, and I was going to expand on that and say, like, you're absolutely right. I feel like some of these moments are made for the memes. Like, how many times have you seen Optimus step on that poor deer? How
Right.
many times have you seen, Optimus brandishing the Megatron arm? How would you feel about going on the offensive? And that stuff is like, I mean, and I remember when I saw that, I was like, that's cool. And then like the meme blew up. And it is, I don't know if I'm skirting hypocrisy or not, because like I also think it's cool seeing what other corners of fandom that inspires, like fan art, or now people are like, swapping Megatron arms with like, oh, this the Earthrise Megatron is compatible with the Earthrise Optimus, or things like that. It's like, there's like a fourth party knockoff of Commander Class Optimus, the Studio Series 86 one, that comes with a Megatron arm. It's like, so I like that it's being taken by the fandom, but by the same token, though, I feel like some of these moments are just being like you're saying, screw writing for the trades, we're writing for the memes. And there is a weird insincerity to that I don't know if that sits quite right with me. Maybe I'm just old.
Yeah, it could be a little both, I think, in a lot of ways. Um, it's I'm trying to think back, like, the issues that really resonated with me were like the Starscream origin. I
Yeah.
think that was a fantastic story. Sometimes when they try to do heart, they do it very well. But then on the other hand, um, I don't know if you read the Free Comic Book Day special, but like, I hated, there was a jazz story in there that was meant to be fun, and it just came off, to me, as flat. It came off to
Mm.
me as it felt like it was a softball. Like, yeah, Jazz loves music, and he's been searching out for this type of music, and oh, Jazz finds jazz. It wasn't just a clever name, uh, and yeah,
I have not
uh,
read that one, but I'm just like, eh.
yeah, it's basically, and that's the story, and it's like I get it, like I get the concept, but like the execution's not there on something like that. Like you didn't make me feel for him. It just felt like you tried to do the. It felt like you were really going for like the really easy thing, and
Yeah.
it didn't click with me. On the other hand, the Energon Universe book also has a story involving GI Joe and Hound that's actually really good. So
Oh,
uh,
gotcha.
worth checking out as
Yeah,
well.
I missed that one. I should probably check that out. And you know, and there are bits and moments of, you know, profound stuff to it. You know, it's like, poor Jetfire being like Omega Supreme stuck in the side of the mountain. He's like, I can't see the stars anymore, which is kind of, I mean, it's a nice moment when you see it as a screen grab shared on Facebook over and over. But like, I mean, there there are times that I do like this version of Optimus. That like it seems like it kind of threads a lot of needles, but I think the thing that you've nailed it, joyless. That is the main umbrella term that I think is like that intangible thing poking at the back of my brain that I couldn't articulate. And that's what it is. It's just it's not fun. Whereas at least even GI Joe is kind of fun. Like that's a book that, as I said, I've had a hard time wrapping my head around it because it's a combination of actually it kind of reminds me of like several iterations of IDW GI Joe, where it's like you have colorful characters, but also in incredibly violent situations. But they're also cartoonish characters. So it's like, again, GI Joe always seems like a IP and a brand that it's hard to get right because every fan has a different perspective on what quote unquote right is. Like for my taste, I I like it when it's more colorful and silly. Um, I mean, I like the more gritty military side to an extent, but that's not a diet I wanna sustain on. That's and I kinda go back to maybe less the Sunbow cartoons and maybe to an extent the Larry Hama comics because, like, um, it was a little over our heads, but, like, he's doing satire also in a way that, you know, I'm sure the toy buying audience didn't quite understand, you know, and but you go back to it now and it's like, oh, this is that there's a depth here that I didn't appreciate. But while still being inherently silly. Like I think when you try to serious up GI Joe too much, you kind of lose the thread. So, like, I can mess with something like a GI Joe Renegades, where it's like, you know, it's basically the A team with GI Joe, whereas something like Resolute kind of loses me a little bit. It's like, oh no, they killed Bazooka. Spoilers for GI Joe Resolute, but like, it's man, we're making this real, and you know, it like really counts. I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, give me a GI Joe the movie with like some with those pod people and all that squishy biomechanical stuff that I hated when I was a kid. I just wasn't into it. And it's still squishy and gross, but like now that some of like the weird Cobra Law stuff has made it into classified series, um, for some reason I'm a little more receptive to it than I did when I was younger because like I can appreciate it for how silly it is and that like it's a way to just kind of like I don't know, cut it a little bit. It's like putting a couple extra ice cubes in there just to water it down a little bit and make it a little more palatable.
You know, if you like the if you're starting to have the Cobra Law stuff grow on you, another reason to check out the Void Rival stuff because some of that crosses over into the story there.
Nice.
It's funny. I'm of two minds when it comes to Joe because um, issue 109 of the Larry Hama book is one of my favorite comics of all time, and that is like the most violent GI Joe book. Pretty much. They kill off. It was I think 9 or 11 or 12 Joes. Like, I
Something
mean,
like that.
and I think for me, and I always, for me, I think that came out when I was probably about 12 or 13 years old, so I'm the right age for it. So the 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 pleasant memory around it is the wow, Joe never did this when I was watching the cartoon. But as I get older, I still am of the mind that GI Joe works best when it is, the village people with guns. Like it is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
that that for me just works. They're a superhero team when you get down to it.
Yeah.
They're not anything else, but everyone has their specialty, and that and they're fighting this ridiculous venom. It's Hydra. It's like
Yeah.
you get down to it, they're the Avengers, and Cobra is Hydra. Like and it's just kind of almost a riff on that, and I'm fine with that as far as it being a king. And it's funny. I recommended to the APC to the Autopod Decepticast guys when I was on their show last month that um, they should do Once Upon a Joe for one of their Joe episodes because the whole thing begins with GI Joe crashing a plane into an orphanage, and like that is the start of the premise of the story, and like it works when it's silliest, and that one's kind of meta. Like there is the thing that Cobra's looking for in that episode is the MacGuffin device. That is what it is called. So it's a brilliant, just kind of like ridiculously written episode, but like that's what like one where the writers are writing over kids' heads in a lot of ways, and um, trying to do something that's a little more fun and entertaining for themselves. I think and it's weird because it all we the same thing I'm saying is a positive for the old Sunbow show is a negative for I'm saying is a negative for Daniel Warren Johnson's book. So
Yeah.
I think that's it's an interesting thing because like you talk about threading needles, and I think the longer these brands go on, the more history they have, the more needles you have to think about threading, not necessarily trying to thread them, but knowing they're there in your way as a creative, that you have to decide which way you're going to go, and ultimately you're just going to alienate some people because it's just these IPs have been so many different things to so many different people
Right.
that you're not going to hit it out of the park every time.
Yeah, and it's impossible to please all the people all the time, so you have to settle for pleasing some of the people some of the time and hope that it's enough. Because like, I mean, that's kinda like my journey with Transformers Animated. It's like, who is this for? Because, like, it's wild, the swings that it takes. And, I found it incredibly satisfying, but, like, I still think of how it hit me in 2009, and I wanted no part of it, no chance. It's just like and even then not to relitigate what I've talked about on the other podcast, but, like, I'm glad that I'm experiencing it now with the sensibilities I have now because I think even then it would have confounded me. It would have been just like, who is this for? What is this? Like even with like the references and stuff, I'd be like, I was definitely at a spot in my life. Well, you and I have talked about this in different contexts, but like, I mean, I was even bent out of shape about name reuse. It's like, you're telling me that silver Corvette in that live action movie is Sideswipe? That's not Sideswipe. He's got roller skates. Come on. Like, I mean, it was pretty naive in my fandom, like not understanding the concept and really the need for copyright purposes for name reuse. It's like, I took things very literally. Like I remember watching, Transformers 2007 and being like hung up on like Optimus Prime never says the phrase together, Autobots, comma, transform and roll out. He'll say like a lot of like let's roll, or like you even get like a rollout at one point, but you never get like the full phrase. And like for some reason, it at my age, that's what I wanted. And I felt disappointed that I didn't get it. I'm like, what are we doing? But that's that's neither here nor there. It's just it's interesting our relationships with legacy IP. And we're seeing like with stuff like Skybound and the Energon universe, how different fan bases are interacting with this content. And certainly like in the wake of Transformers 1 also. Like I have to remind myself when I'm interacting with folks on social media that half the time they're probably kids. And it's okay for kids to be excited about the things that they're excited about, but like due to the anonymity of social media, I sometimes make the mistake that everyone I'm dealing with is a peer. And I've discovered that that is not the case.
Yeah, and I think that's a victim of I think especially for folks like us who at our age, when we first got on the internet, we were the age group on the internet. Like there
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
that many people. There certainly weren't many people younger than us, and there were the people older than us were still trying like they were still trying to figure it out for the most part. Um, so being in that demo of where you kind of had the internet to yourself and now 20 years later, or 30 years later, realizing that there are multiple generations now behind you that are adults,
Yeah.
that are using social media to interact, and their experiences and not necessarily your experiences. And so that's certainly an interesting way to look at it. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mentioned in our conversations before the show, I want to talk about kind of the state of the fandom, the state of collecting. And I think
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that's all um what where I'm at with it. And is that you look at it's funny because I feel like um, there's I'm not I always, with Hasbro's latest like their latest live stream, and then the leaks that came out of the product listings for the next like year or so. Um, you look at it, and what I find interesting is Hasbro's really trying to, as we were talking about, thread a lot of needles.
Yeah.
And it's almost like I don't know if by not pleasing, by trying to please everyone with little bits of things. So like you have legacy characters, and then you have like Unicron trilogy characters, and you have the primes and trying to do that as a project, and then peppering in animated, and then even going so far as to do like Flatline, which is essentially an original character for a
Yeah.
mold that a lot of like for me, I was like, why? Like they remade the Red Alert mold being in Age of the Primes. I have no interest in purchasing it because I own the original, I think, 3 times over, 4 times over, and it's a great toy. And like I can't think of finding a way to pay $35 for a lesser version of that toy. But then like, hey, make it a new character. Doing a thing that we've never really gotten in a Decepticon medic. Like those are things where you're like, oh, I might buy that. Like, so
Right.
they've done a really good job, but I think my concern, and I think this is the thing that as I look over the brand and the toy line, especially now that I was putting out like 2008, 2009 stuff, where they were doing a movie line, they were doing a G1 kind of line, but everything was very experimental. It wasn't just how do we match the cartoon? How do we reuse this mold 16 times? Like how do like how do they put like there are some molds that are reused 5 times. I found a mold, I just put it up on my Decepticon shelf. I think it's called Jetblade.
Okay.
Never repainted, never recolored. Voyager class figure. Like, and it's a cool toy.
Huh.
And to just say to myself, they never touched this one a second time, or um, I think my concern with the brand, and I'm getting a little off the thread here, but my concern with as a fan, what worries me, especially as we get to say the 40th anniversary of the movie,
Uh-huh.
and looking at the line from everything post Thrilling 30, so Combiner Wars on, um,
Sure.
through Siege and through the current line, through Siege and Legacy and current line, um, is that we've spent the last 10 years of Transformers redoing the first 20 years of Transformers. And so my concern is that we're going to spend the next 30 years of Transformers redoing the first 40 years of Transformers. Like there
Yeah.
hasn't necessarily been like these lines that are currently there just are a lot of the time, for the most part, revisiting things that have already been done. And so that's my concern. We haven't gotten a Transformers story, especially in the comics, where with Skybound, like we did with I mean, more than meets the eye to some extent, but that's probably about as close as we've ever gotten to it. But we haven't gotten just a new crew. We haven't gotten your Next Generation or your Strange New Worlds, not Strange New Worlds, but like Discovery, where we have just people that are new, and almost everyone's new. And you could bring one or two characters in to tie that all together, and to keep some sort of familiarity. But um, I think that is very much my concern for this
Yeah.
IP going forward, is that at some point you keep down this road, you burn out. You're going to burn out. You're going to, everything's going to be either be another update or a package refresh. And
Yeah.
um, I think, and hey, maybe with the way toy prices are going, maybe that's what we need. But it is concerning to see that, at least in terms of story, in terms of things that, in terms of marketing, we got a little bit of it with Earthspark, but like we've gotten trickles of it, but never, not much any of I guess Earthspark to a bigger extent, because
Yeah.
Bumblebee doesn't play a big part, but like an Optimus Megatron are there, like that's kind of neat, but that's also treading ground that we saw in IDW, other than the Terrans, which again, great, but then Hasbro kind of pulling back on season 2 and season 3 and slashing those budgets to where it is very noticeable.
Mhm.
um, I'm sorry, I'm rambling at this point, but I think that when we talk about the state of the fandom, like yes, it is always a good time to be a Transformers fan. It is a very good time right now when you consider how many lines are out there, and then Hasbro licensing out Transformers to basically anyone who has, the
Yeah.
money to do it. Um, it does concern me that one, we're going to hit a point, a saturation point, if we haven't already, and then two, what does that mean when we do? Because there's
Right.
only going to be so many Optimus figures you can sell before someone can just hand someone an Optimus. My kid doesn't play with it anymore here. Like uh,
Yeah.
I can tell you from my own experiences with my daughter, like, I mean, we've bought her a couple of Barbies, but a lot of people are giving us Barbies because they're just universal
Right.
when you hit a certain point.
You know, the other thing that is fascinating for my personal collection and kind of some of my collecting habits have gotten really weird post Ross. Like and like I kind of have more interest in picking up mismatched weirdos, more so than like whatever's going on in mainline. And in fact, like I've significantly cooled on a line that really kind of like brought me into contemporary collecting, the Studio Series 86 line. It's like I'm an 86 movie guy. This is a toy line made for me. And then you saw the returns diminishing almost immediately. Like like that cup figure is straight up not good. We that blur figure is not great. And granted, like I guess it's a monkey's paw situation because Hot Rod is incredible. So, I mean, I don't want to necessarily like litigate each figure in the line, but like I was like super into it because oh man, I'll buy anything with the TFTM call out on the package, and oh man, I need packaging in those colors for my collection and all that other stuff. Couple years later, the year before the 40th anniversary of the movie, I've cooled on a lot of that. I'm just like, cool. So to get some extra cassette dudes, I have to buy Perceptor again. That's great. Oh, and now he's like in a weird Target exclusive mix matched box art. Great. You know, it's just like there's certain things that like in like the line that for my sensibilities have been like turnoffs. It's like these figures are either numbered or they aren't. You know, it's like I think they knew they had troubles when you release two figures with the same number. I mean, like how how many people look at that and say, you know what? Yeah, Optimus Prime, Galvatron, yeah, they should have the same number. Who is also just a repaint. Though I mm, I do like the new colors on the 86 Galvatron. I just got him from Amazon not too long ago. And I looked at him, I'm like, oh. And so I've got Kingdom with the messed up shoulders. And of course I've got the Behold Galvatron version. It was kind of neat to see like the array of purples and I talked to Lucky. I'm like, what color is he? Purple. What color is he? Also purple. How about him? He's really purple. But no, he's grape flavored though. He's got all those clear plastic bits on him. And it's just like three shades of one purple dude. But speaking of losing the thread, it's just like, you know, by the time you get to Constructicons, I I don't care. I haven't pre-ordered any of them. I mean, maybe I'll get them on sale or something if they end up going on sale, and if not, since they're not numbered, I don't care. Like, I mean, now I don't have to stress about how I would display them. Like, do I keep them in the box? Do I put them in combined mode? You know, what do I do? Because they're cost prohibitive to even think about getting multiples. So you can't do like, oh well, you know, a couple different sets or whatever. But like, I don't know. It's like that my 86 shrine has gotten so far out of control to where it's like I don't even know what I want anymore. There are times that I almost just kind of want to like piece it off and you know see if I could get a couple bills for my Grimlock, you know, that kind of thing. It's like, you know, we had a conversation a couple years ago about like contemporary toys like not really holding value, but like every once in a while you'll get like, wait a sec, why is Grimlock $200 on the aftermarket? That doesn't make any sense. Um but anyway, like I've just like I don't know if it's shifting interests, changing tastes, but like this it just doesn't get my blood up the way it used to. And I think it's because it's a lot of like uninspired redecos and a lot of a lot of repacks. And yet still we found a way to not do Cyclonus in Studio Series packaging at a time where that figure is yellowing in a lot of people's collections. I've been very blessed. Mine is just fine, but um
Checking mine now.
but there are some that look like he's smoking cigarettes with Cyberverse RC. Like there are some that are like really bad. Um,
Yeah, speaking of my Cyberverse RC, it's funny because it's right here. It's like the one figure that's in arm's reach. She's holding up. She might
yeah.
be yellowing a little. I don't know, but she's
Whereas
not.
like Vice Grips looks like she's been dipped in coffee. Like but anyway, like it just feels like it's diminishing returns. Like I mean, I feel like if the leaks and the listings are to be believed, we're going to get a Studio Series 86 leader class Soundwave. And I get the feeling by the time that comes around, I don't know if I'm even going to care. And I'm like, that's cool. I got a bunch of other sound waves. It's like, oh, let me guess that I'm guessing they're just gonna, I don't know, maybe do the Springer treatment to them where they're just gonna like add some parts. I've got that mold four other times already. I don't need it. And I think that's what's really kind of put me off because like I think I had this weird incorrect perception that these were going to be all new molds, like no reuses. Well, that went out the window very quickly. And then, of course, the whole Starscream's Throne legislation and all that, which I've since co-opted and I really made a thing out of it. But I remember being really hung up on that at the time. It's like, wait a sec, you're gonna make this a $50 figure and give me a chair that's not even in the movie? What are we doing? It's so yeah, I've just I found like, I mean, I've kind of shifted more to if I buy Transformers, they're mismatched weirdos from Ross. Um, and kind of the same with classified series as well. It's like I've kind of cooled on that. It's like I can't remember the last time I bought a classified series figure for retail. Like there hasn't been a figure that's come along where I'm like, I have to have that. Like whereas the animated figures in Legacy, I did pay full price for all of those because it's like I like that Optimus and Bumblebee is fine, but like when pre-orders open for Wasp, I had to have it. And I'm glad I do because that figure is sweet. Like the colors are so perfect. It is I mean, I still stand by that like that mold was always meant to be Wasp, and they're just like, "Well, can we make him Bumblebee also?" Because it's just like, I don't know, like his proportions, the it just it looks like what Fugitive Waspinator ought to be. Love that figure, but outside of that, nothing really excites me. And that's a weird spot from where I've been, I don't know, for the last 3 to 5 years. Um, and I don't know what they could put out that would get me excited again. It's certainly not Soundwave. I mean, like I'm kind of lukewarm on this Megatron. It's fine, and I'm not saying he needs to be a gun. I could care less about that because all the people that are hung up on a 86 Megatron being a tank and not a gun. It's just like it's not like you're going to display him in alt mode anyway. It's funny. I wish they had done one of two things on him. One, make him like a unremarkable spaceship, like Siege Soundwave, where I mean he's barely a lamppost, that kind of thing. Or you you give him a pistol grip and he's skybound Megatron, which I mean, you want to talk about like writing for the memes, and that's what it is. It's like, they knew what they were doing when they showed what Megatron's gun mode looks like in Skybound. So it's like, well, there you go. There's your Studio Series 86 figure. Fixed it for you. But
Yeah,
eh,
but even then, like you can't make him small enough to fit in somebody's hand. So,
right.
like just make that an accessory. The last time they made a Megatron that turned into a gun was this guy. Um,
Oh, what is
and
that?
so this is from the Reveal the Shield line, which came out in 2011.
Oh,
They brought back rub symbols, and this is a Legends class figure that turns into a tiny little pistol with a pink safety cap on the end. So like that's
oh,
really
Matt.
the only, and I don't even think now they could get away with doing this because so this was, but this is super tiny. Like that's what you're gonna get. Like if you wanted Megatron as a gun, you would want him to be small enough for other characters to hold.
Right.
To have a leader class figure that is also the size of a gun, that is a leader class sized gun, makes no sense.
No.
The original toy was a role playing toy. It was meant to be the size of a gun because it was meant for kids to pretend they had a gun, which, when we talk about, TM the times, that this is not something that's going to be, something you can really do. So here, this is the
Oh
gun
my
mode.
gosh. Wow. That's pretty solid actually. That
Yeah,
is
but
that
even
is a good likeness.
even then, what's holding a gun that is this size? Like that is still like there's not I have to put this in like a I don't think I put in like a masterpiece figure's hand, it would be too big.
Yeah.
So and this is Legends class or whatever they're calling it now.
Yeah, yeah.
So like like it's just not something you can really do. But I'm with you. I think collector burnout's a real thing. And I think that is part, it is part Hasbro's marketing of the brand, and it is also part just where we are in terms of age. And I think
Mhm.
Hasbro's doing a decent job in terms of trying to market down to, and I don't mean down in a pejorative way, but like market age-wise to a younger crowd, to the crowd that is currently going through their nostalgia phase.
Mhm.
The animated kids, the Transformers Prime kids, like the people who grew up with those, and then also studio series non 86.
Yeah.
Which doesn't seem to be getting the love it wants. I think, I don't want to say blame the fandom, but I feel like there's a little bit of blame to go towards um, the way we cover. And and I say that we as the royal we in terms of
Yeah.
like Transformers podcasters. Um, Giving things like Cyberverse or Earthspark um, as the kids lines, like kind of ignoring them in a way because they're
Mhm.
not the G1 line. Um, doesn't do the brand any favors. Certainly doesn't do us as a fandom any favors. Um, and I hate to break it to you, they're all kids' lines.
Yeah.
you know, and I hear friends of ours on other podcasts say that like, oh well, that's just a kid's line. I don't care. And I'm like, but without that, we don't get to this. And I almost part of me misses the days where there was just one line, where the kids line was the line, and that has its pluses and minuses. I've noticed to putting stuff out there is some really cool experimentation. There's some really good toys. Um, in that, and then there are times where like I was looking at Age of Extinction figures that I was gonna put out, and I was like, wow, these are really small and not terrible. And I'm like, and these weren't even like secondary line figures where like one step changers or something
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
there's a gimmick to them. These were like the line, and I was like, these aren't very good. And so like look, there's clunkers in that, and there's certainly more risk in that Hasbro or even us as a fandom, we can get stuck with a good line or a bad line. Um, but one that's not steeped in nostalgia. I think that's kind of where I'm at. And then to kind of bring this full circle around to animated.
Mhm.
Animated is steeped somewhat in nostalgia, right? You have the character, you have legacy characters, you don't have necessarily new characters, or you have name slaps onto characters that are
Yeah.
um, totally not, Prowl is not Prowl, and at least not in the G1 sense. Um, he is certainly his own characters, but at that point in the fandom, we had gotten used to that from Beast Wars, I think,
Yeah.
knowing that. But I think, you talk about where were you in 2008 when animated was debuting, and for me, I remember seeing those designs and hating them.
Mhm.
Not openly, like not like going on the boards, or but like going, I don't know if I'm gonna like this. And I think I approached it with more open mind, um in two instances. One, there were preview toys, and I'm trying to remember if I got one. No. My friends who were at the BotCon, that I was at BotCon that year, but I didn't go to the dinner. But if you went to the dinner, in your goodie bag was a deluxe figure from that
Oh,
line, from the
nice.
first wave. And courtesy of, I think Hasbro had done that for the thing. And so and most people got Bumblebee because it's probably heavily packed. And I remember playing around with somebody's Bumblebee, and I was like, this is really impressive. Same reason why I sent you the Bumblebee. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like I can't believe they went from this to this and made it look like it does on the screen.
Yeah.
Um, I think that was all very that was a bonus. That was a positive for me to then go, well, let's see what the show's about. And then finding out the show, watching the first couple episodes of the show and realizing it was actually pretty good. And I could look past the designs, and then because they're able to pull them off in physical form in a
Right.
3D world. Um, I think that is one of those things where like, to kind of tie it all together, it's where Hasbro went, decided to experiment and took a big risk and won big. So that's where I'd like to see them go, and I don't know if they're
Yeah.
going to at this point uh, in the game.
Yeah, I think that Hasbro has become risk averse. Into the risk averse? I don't know. But yeah, I it because I think it's a problem that you have with other fandoms, like say like Marvel fandom or DC fandom or Star Wars fandom or whatever. It's like where the fandom has been so vocal that I would imagine that it makes the IP holders resistant to do something new and experimental and scary. Like, you know, we've seen what Disney has been doing with Star Wars, and it's kinda like hit and miss. And it's like when you swing too far and, you know, maybe make something, too inclusive or too diverse, you've got, like, that segment of the fandom. And I think that in our fandom, in Transformers fandom, you've got an epidemic of that. It's like you've got a lot of folks who, frankly, look like us that say like, "Hey, man, if it's not G1, I want no part of it." Um, I've talked extensively, not here, but more in my context at work. We had this lengthy conversation about the recent How to Train Your Dragon live action remake reboot thing, coming immediately off of the heels of the live action Lilo and Stitch thing. And I my contribution to that conversation was refracting it through the conundrum that is Transformers 1. And I brought up, I'm like, I don't think that folks are into that style of animation anymore. I think they want what is quote unquote live action. I mean, we're still even now today seeing dust ups and fights from folks in the fandom who swear up and down that they want an entire movie of the cold open of Bumblebee. Like there are still people walking this earth who think they want that as a movie and will say with a straight face, figuratively in an online space, that like, oh well, because that's live action. What are you talking about? It's a cartoon. I mean, it's like people will say with a straight face that like the Lion King remake is a live action movie. It's still computer generated. It's as much of a cartoon as the original was. It's just a different medium. It's a different style of animation. But I don't know if it's because people are young or because they're dumb or because like media literacy is not their first best strength or whatever. But like at a time where Lilo and Stitch does boffo at the box office, where How to Train Your Dragon does pretty well at the box office, and something like Transformers One doesn't. Maybe there is something to that. What audience, what audiences want. Like I had folks at my work who didn't go see Transformers One because it's an animated movie, and I'm like, well, does it really matter if it's a stylized animated movie or if it's a computer generated live action hybrid type thing? You know, what does it matter? I mean, I don't know if I'm just like on a different level of observation where I'm just like, well, yeah, but this gives me what I want. You know, the stories with the characters I want to see, that type of thing, unburdened from like the Michael Bay of it. You know, that kind of thing. But like, I don't know. It's just like I've under the umbrella of shifting tastes and changing interests. It was just I think it's really stuck in my head kind of post this announcement that you probably saw over the weekend that Paramount has said that they have no interest in a Transformers 1 sequel. And as you can imagine in the online space, rotten with young people, the fandom is taking it well, as I'm sure you can imagine. But it's like, wait a sec, I'm turning resentful against a movie that I really liked. This isn't right. But anyway.
Well, I think, that some of that is all, and we might have talked about this before.
Hmm.
I take box office with a grain of salt,
Sure.
as a because it's measured in dollars, right? It's not measured in number of tickets sold. So you start looking historically at like you go back to the 70s and 80s. Movies ran for longer They sold more tickets. They had more butts and seats. Tickets were cheaper. So it's very rare that you see like those numbers adjusted uh, to be comparative. So,
Yeah.
hearing something is number one at the box office now also doesn't really hold a lot of weight because not a lot people don't go to the movies like people used to go to the movies. So Transformers 1 sat in a weird space because it was I felt like it was aimed too high in terms of age. Um, I
Yeah.
didn't feel comfortable bringing my daughter to it. And I saw it. I saw it before it came out. I got to go to a press screening, and I was like, maybe I'll take her to see it. And I ended up taking my wife to see it because like, let's go. I'm like, it was really good. You'll like it. Let's go see it together and see if it's worthwhile to take it because I'll see it 3 times. I don't care.
Sure,
And
sure.
we both walked out there like, I think this might be too scary for her. It might be over her head. It's a little violent. Um, and so when you get to those movies like Lilo and Stitch, like we took my daughter to her first movie. It was the live action Snow White because we know it's safe. It's got enough to it where it will be an enjoyable ride. She'll be a little scared. She'll have the feeling of going to a movie,
Hmm.
and we won't be doing permanent damage to her. We're not initializing trauma to
Right.
her, right?
Right.
Um, so you know, Transformers 1 suffers from sitting in an age range where kids are more likely to, at 10, 11, 12, just wait for it to come on streaming.
Right.
Or watch clips of it online and piece it together, on their own. Like, I just don't think, that's one part of it. I don't think, Paramount realizes that like you can't market it to adults, like you said, because they don't want to go see an animated movie. That
Right.
they marketed it poorly, which we all know. Um, because like that first trailer kind of sunk the ship for a lot of people.
Sure.
And then I think the other thing, that kind of gets buried in all of this was the announcement from a few months ago of Hasbro was not funding any movies about their IP. So what
Mhm.
does that mean in real world sense? It doesn't mean Hasbro's not going to take somebody's money for a license to make a movie about their IP. It just means they're not sinking their own money into the production. So with Transformers One, for instance, they put some, Hasbro and Paramount worked out a deal somewhere where, Hasbro put money into the creation of that film.
Yeah.
Um, Now, on the idea of there doing it being a sequel, Hasbro's already said we're not putting money into it. You want to make it? We can figure out a way to make it. But Paramount's like, no, we're not going to make it. Why? Because now they've got to go secure funding for the film. However millions of dollars that is. And film companies don't just pay out their own money. They get financial backers for their films. And so it's that I think is the bigger part of this announcement. Like, yeah, of course they're not going to make one because no one's helping them make it. And so, unless they feel like it is a surefire win and they're going to make money on it, which they didn't do with Transformers One, like they broke even and probably turned a slight profit. It might be doing well on Paramount Plus, which might have some later returns. But is that enough to then fund a whole other movie on their own? Probably not.
Right. Right. And then again, it's the question of aesthetics. It's like where does this sit? You know, um, Whereas I think conversely, you have something like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which was a modest hit and then spun off a relatively decent spin-off series. And I guess I thought that that's what the trajectory for Transformers 1 would be.
Yeah,
Um,
but Mutant Mayhem was much more family accessible in terms
yes,
of
it was. Yeah,
being a
right,
film. A film. I mean, I could probably plop my daughter in front of that right now, and that like I wouldn't feel uncomfortable with her watching it. Like,
right.
no one's getting torn in half in that film.
Yeah, yes. Well, and it's interesting because like I saw an article, I think it was in Variety the other day, talking about how PG is now like the go-to rating. Because like that's where like these live action remakes are sitting. And I don't remember. I think I was trying to figure this out at the time. I think Transformers 1 is actually, PG-13, if I'm not mistaken, or if it isn't, it should be.
I'm pretty sure it's PG-13.
Yeah, let me see, Transformers 1, 2024 film, PG.
Hmm. I
Dude
mean,
gets
that's
torn in half.
you know why? Because he's a robot. I mean, that's
There it is.
if it's a human, that's an R rating. Like
Right,
it's just
yes. But yeah, it is just kind of interesting, and I, of course, look at all of this through the lens of the '86 movie. And it's like, the '86 movie, it's like you throw in some more mature language, some more intense subject matter, and some celebrity voice casting. Like I've talked at length, and I don't mean to relitigate this now, but it's like I've I landed on like the kind of like duality and sameness of Transformers the movie and Transformers 1. Like I feel like they're of a kind. And also with not it's like somehow they've made the same mistake twice. 'Cause like Transformers the movie, not successful for a lot of those reasons. And it's man, how do you do that again? That's amazing. I haven't thought about it like this from that perspective for months, but it's just like, wait a damn minute, they made all the same mistakes again. Wow. Blown my own mind on on the live stream here.
does make you wonder if it's by design because that means Transformers One will resonate for 4 decades and become a cult classic, which it
Sure.
certainly has all the right markings for being something like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I lost the thread there. It's like, I don't know. I don't know if I wanted to talk more one, but, you wanna talk about animated a little more?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I'm looking at the what we were thinking about talking about, and the one thing listening to the show, listening to two mics,
Yeah.
that it really kept coming back to me because it's funny. Like if you were to ask me my favorite animated episode, I don't have one.
Okay.
I've watched that show once, front to back. I've watched it. I watched it when it aired. Um, and I think there's a technology thing that I don't think you guys touched on. That I think is super important because Cartoon Network had animated all over the map in terms of when it was on, to the point where like it was never on a regular time slot, if I remember right. But that was also the era of the TiVo and the DVR, and when
Oh,
those were really becoming very commonplace. So much so that I remember, like, I would stockpile episodes and watch them on my DVR, and then like burn through four or five and kind of binge watch, before there was really a term for it. So like story beats and the big plot twists, those are the things that resonate with me and remind me of the thing of like, oh, they're I mean, without spoiling for anyone who hasn't seen, but just certain characters and where they go.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's funny. I've watched the show once. I've listened to two full podcasts that have done the entire series. Yourself and then Stasis Pod did it a few years ago, and my friends host that show. So I've experienced it more through podcasts than I have visually. I know. Um, but I think that's there's no denying how important it is for the fandom. That was a breath of fresh air into the fandom post movie.
Mhm.
That was very different and probably very well timed, because it's parallel with Revenge of the Fallen, which
Right.
wasn't very good. It was also part of the writer's strike. It suffered from a lot of um, issues with the filmmaking process.
Mhm.
Um, and I, the one thing, and I think it's funny, you don't get to some of the greatest stories, and that's not to take away from animated, because there are some of the best Transformer stories told in that series, but you don't get to IDW Phase Two without animated. Um, and for two reasons. One, there's a big risk there, but there's a big risk in storytelling that IDW then takes again with phase two. But there's also, one of the things I remember noticing at the conventions, and I think this resonates with IDW too. Um, because of animated, I remember going to BotCon that year, and the second, yeah, the year of season two, let's say, because that
Mm,
that was probably the year where it was already out for bid, and noticing a lot more, and I will say girls, but girls, young women at the convention. It um broadened the scope of who was a Transformer fan,
yeah.
uh, to a very large extent. Like I remember like, wow, there's a lot of girls here. There's a lot of women here. There's a lot of folks dressed in, there are a lot of cosplayers too. I was like, there's a lot of cosplay for animated. Um, and then later again, had that same reaction and probably saw it happen in a bigger scale with More Than Meets the Eye, and ultimately Lost Light. I think those are the kinds of keystone moments in the fandom where you've expanded the audience beyond people that look like you and me, beyond
Mhm.
people that want G1 rehashed, in a way that is super beneficial to the fandom, super important, because it gives you a wider depth of storytelling, a wider depth of fan. Um, animated's impact isn't just the plot twists. It isn't just the things,
Right.
the Game of Thrones moments. In a way where, not for nothing, yeah, plot twists in that show. Game of Thrones, when did Game of Thrones debut? I mean, like, the books are from the 90s, but like, I'm trying to remember when that first season came out in. It was after animated was done, so never mind. But like, animated is almost even the precursor to that in terms of, and not that shows don't drop plot twists, but like, I always say Game of Thrones changed TV in a way,
Yeah.
after that first season, because everyone had to have a plot twist the next season. There were
Yeah.
shows, there were shows that were irreversibly damaged because of Game of Thrones. I feel Boardwalk Empire is one of those shows that was massively damaged in the second season because it's like, yep, we got to kill off a major character, and
Yeah.
because Game of Thrones did it. And so,
Walking Dead certainly as well.
yeah, and then bring that back to Skybound, talk about joyless. One of the things with The Walking Dead, I thought of it when we were talking, and it's probably just before we get too far away from it.
Sure.
Having read the comics, and I, you know, there is a joylessness to that show, right? There was a joylessness to that comic until, right, because you're basically waiting around for your favorite characters to die, until you get to Negan.
Yeah.
And even though Negan's a villain and he does terrible things, and he has a redemption arc in terms of a story, he's funny. Like, it's dark humor, but he's funny. And it brings something to to that story and to that book. Like, what is this guy going to say next?
Yeah.
And I think, maybe it's a Skybound thing, but like, yeah, you're not seeing that in Daniel Warren Johnson's book. Like,
Right.
when you talk about joyless, there isn't even dark humor in a way where you're like, oh, that's messed up, but that's funny. Um,
Right.
anyway, so back to animated. So yeah, I mean, it is not my favorite series, and it's not that I don't like it. It's just there's ones that I have more of an emotional attachment to, but
Sure.
there's no denying it is one of the best Transformers series of all time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Uh, Game of Thrones, by the way, 2011.
2011. Okay.
Only 2 years away from the end of animated. So, yeah, that's kinda in that zeitgeist, I suppose. Um, so you talked about, so it hypothetically, because I mean, obviously, you said you don't have a favorite episode, but if you had Doc Brown's DeLorean time machine and you had the opportunity to join the titular two mics for an episode, what would you join us for?
Oh boy.
Now you have the advantage of having listened to the episodes also.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, like, I have a hard time putting um episode titles with like events in the show. Like,
Oh, sure,
I
sure.
remember everything that happened, and um hold on, I'm gonna look at my animated toy shelf to see if anything really inspires me. Um Yeah, I guess one of the ones probably with Ratchet and RC. I wouldn't be able to tell you,
Sure.
but I think the one of the one of the deep hurting episodes
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you got like I completely forgot about that and yeah, so
That Ratchet has so much trauma. I mean, it's
you
like
know
he is broken.
this show also resonates into it's important to think about like what this show did for Transformers Prime,
Yeah.
um, because you don't get broken Ratchet, which is also what you get in Prime,
Mhm.
without animated. You don't get Bulkhead as a central character without animated.
Right.
So there's two really big concepts that carry over from one to the other, especially with Ratchet being broken. Because in my head, look, Ratchet in the G1 cartoon is a doctor who sounds like Papa Smurf for the most part, right? Because
Yeah. Yep.
he is oh God, I can't remember his name, but he is the voice of Papa Smurf and Scooby Doo. Uh, but if you ever read Ratchet's G1 bio on his tech spec card, he is written to be Hawkeye from MASH. And I don't think anyone's ever characterized him like that, but there's a bit of that like doctor in the middle of war rebuilding people to go get killed again or go get
Yeah.
shot up again. That animated Ratchet has that kind of harkens back to that in a way. In my brain, I'm like, I would love if we had a Transformers series where Alan Alda voiced Ratchet.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
but he's also almost, I think he is 90 years old at this point. So like I would be afraid to cast him in anything that was supposed to go more than 1 or 2 seasons. I'd probably make him record everything
Yeah.
for just pay him for 3 seasons, even if you don't do
Yeah.
it.
We're just gonna have you read the phone book, and then we'll stitch it
We'll
together later.
sign off on that AI deal.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, so with that being said, we talked about certain characters, but like, do you have any standouts that resonate with you? You mentioned Ratchet a lot, but
um,
there's some cool folks that are unique to animated, I think.
Yeah, I the ones that pop in my head, especially from the relay. I mean, I think before listening to two mics, it's Bulkhead. I
Yeah.
think the clumsy, tortured artist who also smashes things is a neat concept. And plus, having Dauber from Coach voice him is always a nice touch.
Mhm.
And then, the ones that stand out to me, especially having re-listened to the show, partially because I forgot how interesting their story arc is, but also because I mentally keep a list of like characters that really deserve toys that we never got,
Mm.
and the Constructicons,
Yeah.
and I mean, to when I say toys, I mean official toys, not third party, but like they are right up there with like, when I think of like the most important characters that have never gotten toys, it's like they're up there, with like Big Red and like Botanica as characters that like really deserve toys, and
Mhm.
then Big Red probably doesn't. It's just the goofy splash page,
Yep.
but that's more of a cult thing. But like the animated Constructicons, like it shocks me even now that they haven't found a way to sneak them into one of the lines because um for Hasbro it's like those would sell, those would be part of legacy, and then it would allow them to reuse get two names back when they're not doing Devastator in a year or two. Like
Right. Well, I mean, give me Dirt Boss in that legacy aesthetic, kind of like, I mean, because like, you almost use Gnaw as an example. Like he's a stubby little grump. I I
hmm
I love that Sharkticon Gnaw, the 86 version. But yeah, you run him on kind of like that platform, as just like a thick, stubby grump. And I think that would be fun as hell. Um, yeah, I mean, again, talk about toys we never got, but yeah, that would be certainly neat. And the as we litigated a lot in the podcast proper, like I was not expecting some of these weird takes and some of these weird characters because there's weird characters. Um, so I gotta ask is like, being as a wide fan of the franchise, how do you feel about the human supervillains in TFA? Because they seem to be the most polarizing characters of all.
I love the idea. I think it's important that you have a rogues gallery that isn't just Starscream and Megatron. And to say it's polarizing seems silly because like if you look at historically look at Transformers, right? Like you have in G1 the comic, Bob Budiansky did so many human-centric stories where either human was a villain or a key portion of the story, and that human
Mhm.
was not necessarily Sparkplug or Buster Witwicky. Um, that it became almost something they did every other issue. Um, and then even G1 in the cartoon, like some of the more interesting, tales, was it the Games Master? Oh no, I'm
Mhm.
confusing that with G.I. Joe. Um, but the
Oh,
one,
yeah.
oh,
Um,
the hunter uh, who was hunting Optimus Prime.
yeah, it's like a prime target or some such like
Prime
that.
Target, yeah.
Yeah.
Like that, or even some of the, the weird season two, like traveling through space stories of,
Yeah.
the different alien races. Like, there's plenty of story in Transformers where humans or some sort of alien who are humanoid are a massive part of the story and are the villain.
Right.
So doing things like the Angry Archer or I forget his name, the rich kid, the rich
Oh,
guy,
Headmaster, Henry
yeah,
Master.
headmaster, yeah, or a headmaster, and uh, yeah, I think all of that with the human characters, like, yeah, give me more of that. Give me a reason. Give me someone as long as they're a formidable opponent, like because what they're gonna lack in size, they need to make up for. Uh, in other ways, either in resources and whatever it is, as long as it's
Right.
believable to some extent, in the world of transforming robots, in supergalactic space adventures, like as long as it's plausible within world, yeah, I don't see a problem with it at all.
Yeah, and, and it's always good to have scale. If everybody is a giant robot, nobody is a giant robot. It's like you lose that. And that's one of my weird criticisms of season 3 because, like, all the human supervillains just get jettisoned. And it's, and I think the show kinda suffers for it a little bit. It loses a bit of the zaniness that the first 2 seasons had, which is really what kind of appealed to me. It's like, we can balance, like, these deathly serious stories with, like, "Oh, we're just fighting a guy that runs real fast." Okay, you gotta Aaron Archer, actual Aaron Archer with like a bow and arrow and stuff. It's just crazy silly stuff that that really resonated with me very quickly. But um so one of the questions that I asked our panel, which that we've already, full disclosure, if you're still hanging out on the live stream, we've already recorded our panel episode and it is coming in 2 weeks, I think. So, yeah, not this Friday, but the Friday after. But one of the things that we kind of talked about a little bit, this was an opportunity to roast Mike Seibert a little bit. I the way I formatted it in the invite was like, "What's your favorite bad take from the two Mikes?" For example, Mike Seibert has some crazy theories early in the show. So having listened to, I'm really suddenly very fascinated because I haven't listened to Stasis Pod's coverage of TFA, and now I really, really want to. I think that would be really I think that would be a really fun experience now that I've taken the journey to get a different perspective. But having watched the show once and listening to another podcast and knowing me, um what were there any particular moments that stuck out to you as a super fan of, like, buddy, what the hell?
Um, I'm trying to think. Um, I think the one that took me off guard early on, and maybe because I just don't remember the early episodes, was that um your initial take on Prowl is Prowl's a dick.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I got that from the beginning of the show. I always felt like Prowl was just kind of more mysterious
Mm,
than actually, being a jerk or anything, or being kind of having sort of any sort of ill intent.
yeah.
So I think that was the one. That was the only one. And I don't know if there's like a not all prowls like kind of sticker for.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, no, and it was interesting because like I I like that perspective you've just added of mysterious because like the intersection of those is aloof.
Mhm.
Prowl is aloof, but like you can read it as mysterious or you can take it as being a jerk. I like that it's like branches from the same tree. That kind of thing. I just kind of landed on I'm like this guy's a jerk. And one of the more iconic things and it spoiler alert for the end of the show, it ends up very much coming to pass. I'm like, "Hey, Michael Andrews, why is this guy a jerk?" Well, so he cannot be a jerk later. And, he retains his arrogance of his abilities, but, like, for the most part, he through the journey that we go with this guy, he learns a great deal of humility, and he is a different person than the guy that we meet in the first episode, by the time we find him at the end, which I found incredibly satisfying. Like, the character work this show does is pretty incredible for most of the characters.
Yeah, and we get. I think they don't abandon. I don't want to call it cartoonishness of it, but
Yeah.
I guess there is some of that. But like, characters like Lugnut and Blitzwing, like they're just super entertaining.
Yes.
Or how Blitzwing is essentially Manny Faces, but just crazy.
Yep.
Um,
Same gimmick too.
yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. So, so with that, so we're at about 2.5 hours in the live stream. It is very late on the East Coast there, but is there any of the other stuff that we talked about? Like we exchanged like lists of like TVs and movies and anything else. Is there anything you want to blitz through while we're here together before we turn into pumpkins?
yeah. Real quick, I think it's funny because we meant to talk about content like that we weren't, and we talked mostly about Transformers, so there might be a
Yeah.
whole other episode here. I've had a chance since I'm on vacation to catch up on some shows and movies and things, and I've been really um, working on that. And the two movies I just watched, I think they're kind of, I guess they're not terribly old, right? So they're probably maybe 6 months at this point.
Yeah.
Were Venom: The Last Dance and Craven the Hunter, and I had Craven popped in my head because it's Craven's based on the story that same Transformers episode is based on.
Yep.
And um, my one my hot takes on both of these. I like the Venom series. I don't necessarily remember anything much about the
Sure.
Venom series. Like they're not memorable movies, except that I really like Tom Hardy as Venom. And not necessarily Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock. I like Venom is entertaining, like the character and the way he's voiced and played for laughs in a lot of ways. Um, the one thing, and I got it out of both these movies, and maybe this is the problem with Sony Spider-Man movies that we will now no longer have, right?
Right.
Is that they introduce a lot. Um, both Venom and Venom just felt like it was really hastily slapped together. But even Craven, to an extent, there was a lot of going from place to place and doing things that happened really quickly.
Mhm.
Um, that it felt like both movies would have been better served if they were 9 episode TV series. or 10
Yeah.
episode TV series. In that they could have slow dripped a lot of that and still had a lot of the big moments and a lot of the key points, but given them the structure and the foundation to actually make them interesting and make me care. And there was, I just want to point out, there was one line in Craven that I literally had. I can't tell you the last time I did that. This, but I ran it back because of like that line's terrible and it makes no sense.
Yes.
And it was Calypso saying she didn't have any more of that potion. Uh, because Craven asked her if she has more of the potion. She goes, no, something that her grandmother had made it, and she goes, no, um, she died shortly after her, and I didn't see her much since. And like that's the line. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think you would see her much
Oh,
since. I'm like, I think you should have said those the other way around.
yes. Yes. Take another pass, please.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Oh man.
That and I'm bummed that Night Court ended on a cliffhanger and it's not getting renewed.
Yeah, how about that? That's that is really have you made it there yet in your
Yeah, I literally just before I came on, I had dinner and I watched the last two episodes, so
okay.
I'm 100% caught up.
Because I was almost to the point I'm like, stop at the second to the last one and don't even bother with the last one because it'll almost make you more frustrated.
It makes me mad only because, well, there were two things that I didn't like about for the most part, season enjoyable was enjoyable. I feel like there was something in every episode that actually made me laugh out loud. Like I'm watching it by myself. I don't really necessarily, like when you watch sitcoms by yourself, I don't feel like you know, it's hard to get a laugh if you're not with other people.
Right.
There was something in almost every episode that I literally laughed out loud. Like the guy the guy who was in love with a plant and then his family was there and it was just two like other big plants. That got me every time. Every time I laughed at it. It's so dumb, but it just made me laugh. But there was what bothered me about that last episode was like, okay, they're going to get engaged. We can wrap up this show and this is how the season will end and the show will be wrapped and we get the happy ending, and for them to end on the cliffhanger, like that took guts that I don't necessarily think they really had any right doing.
Right. Right.
Like they barely got a third season and you're gonna gamble on a fourth season, and you nuts.
Yeah.
That bothered me, and I think and maybe I missed it unless it was in the first episode because I watched that right around the time it aired and I binged all the rest this week.
Mm.
um they didn't do anything for Richard Mall, which I thought they didn't like mention Bull. There was nothing. Like Marky Post, Christine got a mention in passing. She, in an episode in season one, a
Mhm.
little more than a mention because her sister shows up, right?
Right. Yeah. And
Um,
yeah, it kind of
yeah,
becomes an integral to that part and is a springboard for Dan Fielding to resolve some of those feelings as well. It was a really nice episode. I actually really, really like that one.
yeah, and it was a nice touch. And then, and they've touched on Harry throughout.
Yeah.
But they didn't do anything for, they didn't do anything for Charles Robinson at any point in the series
Right.
too. So like, it's kind of not that they necessarily need to, but like not in terms of character, but not even like a mention, not even a name mention. Um, Bull had the weirdest ending to his story in the original show. I don't know if you remember.
Uh,
He goes into space with aliens. Like there there are two
oh,
guys who
yeah.
are aliens who are, on, part of the wackiness of the show, and they take him with them at the very end. That's the end of his story. It's stupid and it's silly, but like no acknowledgement of it, and especially when you bring Roz back three or four times in the show,
Yeah.
um, which was great. It's cool to see her in the uniform.
Yeah.
I'm glad they worked that in, but like, yeah, do something. Do something for those guys because I feel like if you're gonna reboot a show and you lose folks along the way from the original, like it's just a good opportunity to tie it all together.
Absolutely. So what you had recently just come off of a Paramount Plus subscription, and
Yes,
you watched yourself some Star Trek,
yes, it
and
did.
I kind of wanted to touch on this because like I I really enjoyed Strange New Worlds, and it's like it really kind of resonated with me in a big bad way. If anybody is has like seen any like photos of me on the internet, I'm pushing my hair up a little higher and all that other stuff. So it's kind of had that effect on me. But like being kind of like having a uh, I don't know. Is it fair to say you have a on again, off again relationship with Trek? Like, I recall you not being like super into it, but like into it enough to hang.
Yeah, I am slightly above a casual fan. I am like I don't retain a lot of it, I think is the thing. Like I will watch it and I will enjoy it and then I will forget for the most part what happened. Uh so like I don't have a deep-seated emotional connection to it, but it was like it Trek has always been well, here's the thing. I have this weird relation to Trek in that
Mhm.
um I've never watched the original series. I've seen a couple episodes, but I've never done the watch through because it used to be on late at night in New York. Like so in New York on the what eventually became the WB station there, WPIX. It was the channel that had all the syndication shows and they ran at certain times. And if Trek was on, I was up too late
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah.
the news went from 10 to 11. 11 o'clock was the honeymooners, and then Trek would probably come on 11:30 or 12. And so I was usually allowed to watch the honeymooners, and then and 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 then Trek also just bored me to a lot. I think I was just too young to like grasp it, and it didn't really um, stand out to me. But one of the first movies I ever went to was The Search for Spock because I like the pointy ears.
Yeah.
And like I don't remember much about the movie, but I remember my uncle taking me. Um, Fast forward to my teenage years, um, Next Generation, and then also DS9
Yeah.
became my guilty pleasures in high school. Didn't watch them, so I don't know what night they aired. I think they aired on Saturdays. But I would watch them Sunday. So Sunday on, I think it was probably it was channel 9, so it was WWOR. They would rerun the episodes from the week before
Oh,
on the
okay.
Sunday after the new episode. So the new episode aired Saturday, but the old episode would air Sunday. So I was always a week behind. But I remember really getting into it when DS9 started getting really good. And
Mhm.
so like they would run them an hour back, they run them 2 hours back to back. So um that's when I got into that. And then so like again, I think like but then after that, I didn't watch any Trek. I didn't watch like any of the other series like Enterprise or what's the other one?
Voyager.
Voyager. Yeah, like none of those really appealed to me. I never really got on with them. Would catch the movies every so often. I think I've seen a couple of the Next Generation movies, but yeah. And then when I had Paramount Plus the first time around, I was like, I'm going to check out Discovery, and I really got into Discovery. And then
Mhm.
they had 4 seasons. That was when season 4 was already up. Um, so I made it through that, and then when I just rejoined this December, I was like, all right, first thing I'm doing is going into season 5 of Discovery. So I blew through that, and you had told me about Strange New World, so I did that, and yeah, so I got I got a lot of good Trek in doing those. I think Strange New Worlds didn't really like it was okay the first
Yeah.
season. Then you get towards the end of the first season, it started getting really good, and then that second season was really just really good. I think them taking some really big chances with the storytelling and then kind of varying it up from episode to episode. I think what really got me, and this was later in the season, is you go from that one episode with the Klingon War, and
Yeah.
and that is a really intense episode.
You talk about
Um,
deep hurting.
yeah,
I
and
mean
then
that's Ratchet right there, basically.
yeah, yeah, and then you go from that to the lower decks crossover
Yeah.
on the next episode. You're like, what the hell just happened?
Yep. Yep.
And keeping, or was that the next one? Yeah, it was the
Yeah.
musical. Um,
Yeah. The
whichever it
music
was,
towards the
and then
end.
the musical episode was great.
I
So
love it.
like,
Yeah.
So I love that one, they found ways to do really quirky things, but also make them work in context of in world in context. Like doing the Strange New Worlds crossover and having the voice actors play themselves as real people
Yeah.
is just it's such a smart idea. And then making that work. And then the musical episode having it basically be Carnage in C minor.
Yeah.
Um, still worked great. And so shows really impressed me on the back end.
Yeah. And a shocking amount of plot in those seeming gimmick episodes. It's like, "Oh, you could just skip the musical episode. Oh, you could just skip the cartoon crossover." No, friend.
No, you can't.
No, friend. There's a lot of plot. A lot of plot
No, a
in
lot of and there's a lot of the musical episode is when the nurse and Spock like break up
yeah.
ultimately, right? Like so
Yeah,
like
yeah. That's like the whole outcome of that.
yeah, like you can't skip that episode.
Right. Right. Yeah, it's nuts. Good stuff. What did I have here? I've seen way too many movies to want to talk about, but I did want to read this line from our chat because this cracked me up too much. So I've uh, I get a lot of press screenings, so I go to the movies more than I would have otherwise. But like, you had mentioned we could talk about how I've never seen a John Wick or a Mission Impossible (parentheses) or Fast and Furious. I just think it's funny that some of these movies that like I talk about so freely and opening on any of my podcasts that like, yeah, just blind spots cracks me up.
Yeah. Yeah, and those aren't even ones like I don't watch because they're it's funny because there are movies in that like everyone has seen that I have not seen and
Yeah,
they're like Jaws. I've never seen Jaws. Um it makes people mad that I haven't seen Jaws.
sure.
So now I enjoy making people mad haven't seen Jaws than any enjoyment I will get of ever seeing the film. That was the same for a long time with A Christmas Story, which
Sure.
I did not see, I think, until probably the first Christmas I was married. Uh, and like, and my wife made me watch it because and I was like, but I really like having never seen this movie because it really just aggravates people. Um, so yeah, I've never, but it's not for any other reason. But like now they're on my list. I keep this massive list of things I want to keep catch up with, and the Mission Impossible. I should probably put the John Wick movies on there too, but the Mission Impossible movies, the Fast and Furious. I feel like I would get something out of um watching them all in sequence and kind of doing like a massive run through of
Sure.
either one, really.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. It's like I remember that in fact, actually, it's still the name of our group chat to this day. So, me and Greg Tansley from Unfunny Nerd Tangent and Caleb from Autopod Decepticast, we did a couple podcasts a million years ago. It's like we talked about the Road Warrior and like, how it's like, the hero with 1,000 faces trope and like we really like got like real deep and philosophical on that. And from there, oh, what was it? Oh, Greg had me on to talk about Big Trouble in Little China because I had said that I had not seen it. So I watched it specifically for that podcast. And so after that, it was like, well, let's just do movie blind spots. So even now to this day, like our Facebook chat is called Movie Blind Spots. We have not talked about movie blind spots in years. But but it's just funny, like, thinking about like that conceptually as like I think blind spots happen because media happens at a certain time. And sometimes that window closes. Like for example, Jaws for you. Like that there was probably a time earlier in your life where you could have seen it and for whatever reason it just didn't, and then it would be weird to just like say I'm just going to watch Jaws. You don't just watch Jaws. You know what I mean? It's like you're not just going to like get off this call with me and then fire it up and just watch it. It's not that kind of movie. So you almost need like a mechanism to get into some of those things. Like so like with me, like with Big Trouble in Little China, just for whatever reason, I'd missed it on TV whenever it was on, and obviously I didn't see it in the theater or whatever, and just for whatever reason, it just slid into that blind spot, and it stayed there until I had a reason to go see it. So, like I've always kind of looked at that when so I'm the inverse of the folks you're talking about. Like I don't get mad at people for missing stuff anymore because now I have a better understanding for how and why people miss stuff. Like, again, me with good old Transformers animated. It'd be like, well, I just, it just slid into the blind spot. I didn't think it was for me at the time, and I had no reason to go back until I was given one. So I have no idea where I'm going with that, but that's just a random observation about blind spots, I guess.
Well, actually, that brings me to a question I wanted to ask you. I
Hmm.
mean, I know you guys haven't announced what you're doing after the show, but um, what for you then? Like knowing you went into the podcast knowing animated was your blind spot, one of your blind spots. Um, what is the next Transformers series that is a blind spot for you that you want to go watch?
Well, and I think those are almost two separate questions because, like, here's the thing: I haven't watched Prime all the way through. I've seen a smattering of episodes, and I think it was because like whatever cable package we had didn't include the hub. So it was just like it just disappeared into that blind spot. And again, I never went back for it, caught a handful of episodes here and there, shrug, it's fine. Um, but like I don't feel drawn to it. Like, I don't feel like I've truly missed it, that kind of thing. Like, I would be more interested in, like, Beast Machines or, like, something weird that, like, I haven't, had that same experience with. Um, yeah, I don't know because, like, I don't remember if it made it into, any of the episodes, but Michael Andrews was really straight with me. He was just like, "No, I think animated is kinda it for you for what this project is, because of the reliance on both G1 sensibilities, but then also doing something, like, new and weird, and it has a strange '86 movie flavoring to it that not a lot of other stuff has." Um, so I don't know, I would have to think about that. I would almost want to turn it the other direction. Like, for example, I would almost rather do something that's maybe in his blind spot instead of mine, to flip it the other way. Like I've soft pitched GI Joe Renegades, for example, because that's got a strong Marty Eisenberg connection, and I don't know if this is too spicy or provocative to say, but I would say that Renegades is kind of the Transformers animated of GI Joe shows, just in terms of like how inverted some of the tropes are, and how you have different takes on characters. I don't think it swings as hard. I don't think it's as risky because like animated Transformers anime is just downright dangerous in like how they just break stuff.
Hmm.
Whereas like even in its um violently different concept, there's still a safety to GI Joe Renegades a little bit. It's not as off the wall as say Transformers animated, but yeah, I don't know. I would have to give that some thought. Um I can tell you as a tease for both you, my friend, and the folks still watching deep into the stream. Um while we are done with animated, it would seem the animated is not quite done with us yet.
Nice.
And I gotta leave it there because like I feel like a sniper scope from Michael Andrews from Minnesota. He's just like, careful, buddy. He's like lurking in the chat. He's just like, careful, careful. But yeah, we are about to embark on some dark black highway of an indetermined future. So, and again, I'll leave it at there for now. But uh,
Awesome.
If
So,
this was the end credits of a Marvel movie, it would be like the two Mikes will return, that kind of thing.
so let me ask you. It's funny because I do my podcast. I do Transformers University in part as a service to myself to go through my blind spots.
Mm,
So that part of the reason why it's taking me so long right now to go through the Japanese G1 series is that I've never seen them. So there's no shorthand for me. It's not like I've seen that like where I can sit down with a G1 episode and do my research for the podcast. Like, well, I've seen it a million times. I can watch it and half pay attention and know all the beats and the plot
yeah,
points and why it's important. Um, so like when I went through Headmasters, it was my first time. When I went through now going through Master Force, it is my first time. A lot of Marvel UK comics, it's my first time. Um, let's just sticking to just television media.
sure.
What are your blind spots after post G1?
Oh, man. Oh, this is gonna get really spicy. My subscriptions are just going to, like, uh uh, you know,
So Beast Wars? Just go
uh
yes or no, lightning round. Beast
okay, here
Wars.
we go. No.
No, you've seen Beast Wars.
I have okay, hang on. What's the yes, no question? Have I seen it, or is it a blind spot?
What
Yes.
would you consider a blind spot? I guess is knowing what happens or having seen it.
And those are two different things.
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't seen Beast Wars all the way through. I've
Okay. So
never seen it end to end. And in fact, maybe I'll save you some mileage on the lightning round. Um, I would have t what have I seen end to end? Um, I mean,
the
shit,
Netflix series.
yeah, I was gonna say Netflix. That's probably the only thing, uh, between animated and now that I've seen end to end. So I have seen Netflix end to end, but, like, I'm trying to see if I can find a, list of series
I,
to
I can do it off the top of my head.
okay, alright.
So all right. So let's go Japanese Japan first. So Headmasters,
No.
Master Force,
No.
Victory.
Not even.
Zone is one episode, so we're not going to count Zone.
Yeah,
Uh,
but also no.
uh, Beast Wars, we already said no.
Right.
Beast Machines is a no, right? Uh, Robots in Disguise 2001.
Um, you know what? I think I have seen that.
Okay. And I skipped the Japan. I'm going to assume Beast Wars Neo, Beast Wars Second, you haven't seen. Um,
I've seen some of it. I had a bootleg VHS tape when I was in my 20s,
right, me
and
too.
and it was like, "Ooh, this is weird,"
Yeah.
because it's like a combination of, like, G2 characters and, like, Beast characters, and I'm like, "This is friggin' weird." But anyway, no, I have not seen it all the way through.
Okay. Armada.
No. No, no, no.
Energon.
No, no,
No
no.
way. I've only made
No.
I quit after 7 episodes. Energon is a hard watch.
Yeah.
Uh, Cybertron.
I
Other than
prob
whatever you've done for More Than Meets the Ear.
you beat me to it. I was gonna say, and I was watching with them. Like, I mean, it's like, it's not my fault they
They
stopped doing
stopped.
shows. Because, like, had they actually gone through the series, I would actually say yes, but now, unfortunately, I have to say no.
Honestly, it's the best of the three. All right, Cybertron. Where does that get us to? That gets us to 5. Um, well, I guess it's to animated because
Yeah,
there's
it's
nothing
animated.
after. Yeah, so animated, yes.
Yes.
Uh, Prime, no.
No.
Rid 2015.
Never touched it.
Okay, well, it's a sequel series to Prime, so you
Okay.
probably wouldn't have done that. Cyberverse,
Yes. I have seen
all the way
Cyber
through.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
It
yeah,
it it was a frustrating way to figure it out. I had, like, some stuff on YouTube. Apparently, there was some stuff on Netflix for a while. I remember it being a frustrating experience to get through it.
okay. The
I
Machinima
don't
series.
No. No,
Um,
PU, stayed away.
okay. So Netflix, you've done BotBots.
Nah.
Ooh,
No
okay.
no no bots for me.
I would say go, and then what does that take us to? No, nothing. Everything else is done. That's right. So oh, and Earthspark.
Never finished it.
Oh, okay.
For as extensive as my coverage was of season one, in fact, actually, no, I finished season one, and that was the problem because like I finished season one and got real lukewarm on it. Like all the Quintus Prime stuff didn't click with me. I'm just like, I don't like this anymore. And then the returns started to diminish very quickly. Like
So
I love 2/3 of season one of Earthspark. Um, and I got through season one, but I've never seen season two or season three. I never went back to it.
all right, so I went back to it after when I did this Paramount Plus subscription, and you know, yes. Well, at least you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, yeah,
Season two, just to give my rough non-spoilery take, like
please.
I've never seen a Transformers series go from a good season in season one to a bad season in season two.
Uh,
Almost every show is improved from one to two.
yeah,
I even I mean you could make the argument G1 is worse season two than it is season one, but it's such a big season that like there's just too many episodes. There's
yeah,
just clunkers in there. Um, but like any show that's had more than one season has gotten better from season one to season two.
yeah.
Earthspark did not. It got better from season two to season three, but by then the damage was already done. Um, and so yeah, so it's interesting because there's certainly all the things that made season one really, not all the things made season one really good, but a lot of the things that made season one really good are not there in season
Yeah.
two. And so and they do they explore the Quintus stuff a little bit. There's some other lore that they explore, but what really made season one was the action sequences, and yeah, those are not quite the same
Oh,
uh, in
that's
seasons two and
disappointing.
three. Yeah, because they were really like top tier action sequences that we got in the Earth Spark season one too. I was going to recommend Cyberverse because I feel like that is a good series that has a similar kind of G1 tone to it
Yeah,
that all that animated had. As long as you get past the first 6 episodes, which are boring as all hell.
which was
Um,
really hard. I almost noped out.
yeah. Once you get to Velocitron, the Velocitron episode, the show picks up. Um, and I would say if you have Netflix, give BotBots a try. It's got that same quirkiness that animated had. That is just weird and silly enough, and note that it is not an epic adventure. It is kids cartoon, but it does a lot of things right.
I love it. I love it. Well, and then I remember kind of kicking myself a little bit for missing it at the time because like I think it was my Netflix subscription had lapsed at that point. But I remember that nerd rapper Word Burglar is in it, and he plays a character called Starscope in that, and I'm just like, oh, I should check it out for that, and I never did. He's in episode 8 apparently.
Which is it might be the last episode.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
the episode number is weird because they're 8-minute episodes, so I feel like they go two at a time.
Gotcha. So yeah, so
So
that's
so eight might be 16 or eight might be actual eight.
copy that. Okay, gotcha. Um, so yeah, maybe I'll give that a shot. We'll see. Um, I think we did it.
Yes.
I think we got there. Um, we just crossed 3 hours. So which means so that is what 1 o'clock in the morning your way, something like
Oh
that.
yeah.
Oh, buddy.
119 right now.
Oh, buddy. Oh, buddy. Let's get you out of here. um, well, maybe we've seeded enough episode ideas to come back to movies and TV shows and things like that. At a show other than this one, lament the vast quantity of Taylor Sheridan content that I've consumed. My wife likes it, so I now must like it. But also tell you how Lioness is actually like a spiritual successor to the unit, and is probably like folks that want like that hardcore military GI Joe show. That's in fact, I have no fewer than 3 different classified figures that look like characters from that show. I'm like, look, they have this character. It's got a giant sniper rifle and everything. It's like that. That's basically the Marine sniper is the 60th anniversary version is like the lead character from Lioness. And I'm like, here she is. I already got her. Um, but anyway, we could do that a different time. Before we part ways for now, I know you got some files in lockdown. I think lockdown has kidnapped episodes of Transformers University. But while we're here, anything you want to plug and promote?
Sure. Yeah, Transformers University episode 156 has been recorded. I just need to edit it and need to get access to a computer I can edit it on, which will probably be Monday at some point, or middle of next week. So
Sure.
there will be an episode dropping soon of that. Other than that, nothing really new to promote. The website is still there, TFU.info, and if you want to hang with me on, I don't really do a lot of social media anymore. It's actually been kind of nice. But I am on Blue Sky, TFU.info, all one word, bsky.social. I always get this screwed up because there's bsky.app and there's bsky.social.
Yeah, it's bsky.social. Yeah.
And so yeah, and that's where I am. And then I was thinking, I was like, the next we could probably revisit this in about a month if we decide to do a Big Brother preview or
Oh my
first
gosh.
episode debrief.
We should do that before that consumes our existence. I'm not looking
Yes,
forward to 90-minute episodes. That's going to be a
it was
problem.
90 minutes last year though.
Was it?
Yeah,
Like consistently?
since COVID. No, not COVID. Since the writer's strike, Big Brother and Amazing Race have been 90-minute episodes.
Yeah, whereas I feel like Amazing Race has really benefited from those expanded episodes in a way that say like Survivor just feels padded. And
Big
some of
Brother too.
those Big Brother episodes get lengthy.
Yeah.
I so while we're dabbling in Big Brother chat as we're trying to wrap up, but like I forget, do you mess around with the live feeds at all?
No, no, because we rather just watch. Because the thing is, if I mess around with the live feeds, I'm gonna get spoiled on the next episode, and I don't want to. So I
Ah,
just stay away.
that makes sense. A friend of mine at work gave me his little life hack type of thing, and it does involve spoilers, but like anytime there's um sometimes you get some juicy stuff if you hit the live feeds right after a live show. Like if there's like a veto or an eviction or something like that, if you hit the live feeds like right after that, you usually get some stuff that's cooking. My problem is I've always dipped in like when it's just people playing pool or hanging out by the pool, doing nothing. Or like you have like that gang of folks that sit in the corner outside smoking cigarettes. I'm like, there's nothing here for me. So, but that was a little tip that my dude gave me. He's like, oh yeah, no, just after like a live episode that's particularly good. Like he'll watch like the endurance comps, like, it's like, the live show will end and he'll just watch people feeding eggs through the net or like people on the wall or whatever. And I'm just like, nah, I need that snappy editing. I need that curation station for it to be
Honestly,
me.
the editors on that show are what make that show a lot of the time. There are times where I'm just like, these editors are great between like just sound effects and things that you're like, there's no way that sound is there. Or where the editors make fun of the contestants by putting in sound effects or doing things like that.
Yeah,
It's worthwhile to have the editors look it over.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my friend, anything else before we sign off?
No, this has been great. I had a feeling we were going to go 3 hours, so no,
Yeah.
no big deal here.
Well, and it's funny because now my sensibilities have been ruined by like these 4+ hour two mics episodes. Like once I realized that big podcast will let me post up long episodes, I had this weird misplaced perception that because of like file storage things and like streaming capability, like Apple won't let you put up a 4 hour episode or Spotify won't let you put up a 4 hour episode. um I put up Endgame Part 1 and Part 2, 4 hours and 4.5 hours, and they stream just fine. It's the damnedest thing. So now it's something I have to be very cautious and judicious with. I'm going to test the audience's endurance because people make the mistake of saying like, "Oh, I love long episodes. I drive to the other side of the state. I've got a long commute. Bring it on." I'm like, "You don't know what Pandora's box you are opening, my friend. Brevity is not my first best strength."
I was just about to ask if you told him that.
It's well documented at this point. I think folks just engage with my content. They just buy the ticket and take the ride.
I think you need that under your logo, in
Yeah.
the same font. Everybody is not my first best
Oh my gosh, I love that. Yeah, I need to reach out to Andy and get him to commission the lettering for that. I think that would be a great idea. But thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight. This was great, and it's been way too long, and we got to do it again real soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, and then for Mike Seibert Radio and Anthony Bricali, TFU.info, check him out on all of the things. Till next time, tell all of one, make good choices. Bye.
See ya.
All right. And now we